Hello and welcome back to the Awakening Philosophy Podcast. My name is Jed. Thank you for joining me. Thank you for joining me in chat today. Yes, the cyclone has hit the coast where I live, but fortunately it's been downgraded and it moved further north. So my house is still here, my power is still on, and I even have internet access still. Probably only for a little while because the winds are continuing, the rains are going to continue, there's going to be flooding apparently for another week or so. And the winds are changing directions, so that often pulls branches off trees. Some trees are used to surviving winds in a certain direction, but with the cyclone moving back and forth, it can pull it in a way that a branch isn't used to, and that branch goes sailing into the power lines and the power cuts off. And no philosophy podcast for today. But hopefully that won't happen, and we'll be able to continue the podcast each day. And today is one of those days. Hopefully the weather is better and loved ones are safe and sound. Yes, my loved ones are the Logos. And the Logos is immortal, so we can always do philosophy. Stay and be safe. Thank you. Thank you, Dominic. Yeah, everything was brought in, put up high in case my house flooded, but we're hanging in there. So let's do some philosophy today. How about that? And today is an exciting one because we're in the Pathologos, chapter 2, the chapter of the Pathologos, in the book about the Pathologos. If we can understand and remove our Pathologos, we remove the things that are standing in the ways of us knowing and showing our truest, purest, authentic self. In other words, understanding and removing our pathologos, our false belief about ourself, our false belief about reasoning, is what we need to do to solve our problems. That's super exciting. This is why we're doing it. It's a new discovery. It's not a new discovery. We have known this since Homer. It's an ancient realization that has been buried for 1500 years, which is why we are unable to solve our problems as a species, and why there is so much division between individuals. What is the excellence of a human soul? Are you going to listen to a Buddhist, a Taoist, a Muslim, a Jew, a Catholic, a Protestant? Who's to say? The Logos is to say, and the Logos isn't a who, it's a what. So this division that happens between people is also happening within our soul. As we seek our most personally meaningful, significant goals, we are in conflict with ourselves. That voice comes up and says, you can't do it. You're too tired. Nobody likes you. You are going to be put down. You are not good enough. All of those words are lies, but they are believable lies. We listen, we believe it, we feel things because of what it says. This is the self-sabotage that causes our problems. What's wonderful is in the last 20 to 50 years, someone came along and discovered the cause of this universal human problem, the Pathologos. And fortunately for us, he was a brilliant man, like intellectually the smartest person I've ever seen, but also the greatest integrity. He, as we read in the first chapter, I think he was too young to join a World War II to fight the Nazis, but he did anyway. And while he was fighting Hitler in World War II, as a 17-year-old, I think he won several very high medals of courage and valor for how excellent he was. So this 17-year-old grew into a 90-year-old or a 99-year-old human being who left us the book we're reading, which gives us the handbook. But it's not just a handbook. It's a game. It's like a D&D book, a D&D manual, because you got to actively read it. You're watching it, you're reading it, but you're also actively participating because he's giving us little puzzles to solve. That will upgrade our character. Only the character being upgraded is the soul. Are you calling me out on self-sabotage? Yes, you personally. And also every other human being who is born. Because, as we are learning about the Pathologos, it's a universal human characteristic. And as we read last time, because we can remove the Pathologos, the false image and false belief about ourselves that we think we are, about reality that we think reality is, that's wrong, and will continue to cause blocks and self-sabotage until we pay attention to those problems that are being sent our way, to those thoughts that are being sent away. We pay attention and we play the game. We put on our D&D hat, we put on our wizard's cap, or our Sherlock Holmes deerstalker cap, and look for the puzzles and look for how to solve them. But you need the handbook. Fortunately, we have this handbook. That's what we're reading. We have the manual of how to play the Noblest Game, or the archetype for all other games, all other D&D games, all other heroes' adventures, all other heroes' quests. We can play, which means for those people in the chat and those watching along on YouTube, you are in a very rare and privileged position to have discovered for the first time in perhaps 1,000 years or more the handbook to the game that all humans are here to play. How do we unpack the mystery of our problems, get to its root cause, the origin scene, the false belief we are carrying that's unsuspected, understand it and answer it with our words, with our voice, showing ourselves through words, through logos, in a way that can free us from what has been causing all our problems and suffering. Can we do it? Yes. What does that mean? That means the Pathologos isn't a necessary step in spiritual progress, in the spiritual journey. It's a human step. Because it's removable. Once we've removed it, we keep going. We don't need it anymore. That's part of the human game. And from what we've been reading, it brings with it a clear, pure ability to see and be yourself most authentically, free from the sabotage that was only there to remind you not to forget the most important puzzle you are here to solve. If we didn't have our problems, if we didn't have our self-sabotage, if we didn't have that internal caca daemon, bad daemon voice, telling us we're no good, telling us to give up. If we didn't have that, we could have just gone through our lives happily and easily without ever reflecting on the problem we're here to solve. In that way, we can see that the problems we have, we need to have, and it's just that we have. As we read last time, we saw that there were two fundamental forces that come together to produce the Pathologos. There is the universal. So our friend Sus in chat is making a joke saying, "Are you calling me out about this self-sabotage stuff?" Which is funny because he's relating to it. It's good. But that is also universal. That's the universal force. The universal force is all human souls, or all souls, are seeking reality, are seeking the self, are seeking truth, justice, beauty, which are the aspects of reality and self. We're seeking it. We need to be seeking it for the Pathologos to have its effect, because the Pathologos is the image of those things. It's like a bad car salesman. You have to be wanting a car in the first place for him to sell you the lemon. And now, in that place, that hole, your garage, you had a missing piece in your house. You had a garage without a car in it. Now that car-spaced hole is filled with a lemon that doesn't work. You have to keep pouring your money into it, and is stopping you from driving to the places you want to go to. That's also, analogically, the Pathologos. We have a space that we want to fill with the direct experience of truth, beauty, justice, reality. That's the experience of the mind knowing itself as ousia. And we also seek the cause of that, the self. What is having that remembering experience of reality? What is experiencing beauty? What is the thing that is seeking truth and beauty? So that's the universal. We all have an empty garage that we're looking to put the Lamborghini in. Philosophy is learning about the Lamborghini, putting that Lamborghini in. But you can't put the Lamborghini in through philosophy, through reading Socrates, following his dialectics and practicing the dialectics, unless you remove the lemon. Philosophical midwifery is simply removing the lemon car in your garage so you have a space to fill it with true knowledge of self. So we were all born universally with an empty garage. In other words, we're all born seeking these things that we seek in philosophy, so that our Pathologos can come in and give us a lemon. It's the appearance of beauty. It's the appearance of reality. It's the appearance of care and knowing that our parents, when we were 4 maybe years old, when we were very young, before we had a grasp of the Logos, they were imitating, they were cosplaying, they were lying, they were scamming us. Why? Because it was done to them. And if it was done to them, that is the shape of their lemon. The way they pretend to be wise while crushing you. The way that they pretend to be caring while actually teaching you something that will become your self-sabotage. That's the particular kind of lemon that was parked in their garage when they were young. And if our soul seeks to be our best, be knowing and caring and good and beneficial, and that's your model, then everything in your life will be to try and create the conditions where you can cosplay that same model because you think it's good. In Plato's Republic, Socrates says, by the way, courage, the virtue of courage, is unique because it's a kind of belief. Normally, philosophy is the removal of beliefs to develop understanding. But to begin the journey, there is a certain belief you have to start with. Eventually, it won't be a belief. Eventually, it'll be understanding, and eventually you'll confirm it in your own evidence and experience. But that courage is the belief that the most dangerous thing that all men and gods fear is to have a false image and belief about what is real and what is good in that guiding part of your soul. to have a lemon in your garage is the most dangerous thing that men and gods fear. So courage is to hold on to the belief that even though you've got that lemon in your garage because you're a human being born into a family, it's not personal, it's universal. Even though it's telling you one thing, courage is the belief that really reality is good, doesn't deceive, is truthful, and is simple. Reality ultimately is good, true, and one, despite all of the thoughts, beliefs, feelings, desires, fears, pleasures, and pains that you experience in your life. Hold that belief. In other words, keep seeking the Lamborghini even though you don't realize you've got a lemon in your garage. That's courage, which is a discipline. It's something you have to practice, like going to the gym. Eventually, it upgrades to what Socrates calls what does he call it? The perfected virtues, the natural virtues, where you don't have to carry it as a belief because you've seen it. You've confirmed reality is one, good, and true for yourself. And you haven't just experienced it, you've understood that experience, because the way we get there is through understanding, which makes it different from all other spiritual traditions that try and reject understanding for belief. Even Eastern religion, Eastern spirituality, which does promise an experience, but again, no logos. It's blind. That's the excitement of being alive at this part of history and having this manual for what is really the actual handbook for spirituality, for personal development, and for education. It's universal. It's exciting, and we need to be excited because we don't just read it, we do it. I don't get it. And the bot names real people? Sorry about seriously asking. Oh, I'm sorry, yes. So, Genevieve. Bonsoir. Oh, butterfly. It's a fancy way of saying hello. Thank you for being here. I'm streaming at the same time to Twitch and YouTube. I found Twitch is a kind of like a community, has its own logos, has its own language, and it's pretty fun, and you can tune in to see if your friends are hanging out on Twitch, and you can hang out and talk with them. So Twitch is really cool like that, but some people don't use Twitch and come across new ideas on YouTube. So I'm streaming to both at the same time live, and then I post the videos after on YouTube. So I have this restream bot, so that when people type in YouTube, people in Twitch also see it. So it is actually real people, but if you're seeing the title Restream Bot, then it's probably somebody chatting from Twitch if you're on YouTube, or vice versa. But they're real people. Oh, and so we just to finish that idea, whether or not our problems, our self-sabotage are personal, is it proof of whatever they're saying? If our internal Pathologos voice, again, it's crappy, we want to get rid of it because it's preventing us from reaching our goals, but it's also for our soul's benefit, because if it wasn't keeping your problems alive, you would ignore what you have to do. Is that personal? And if it's saying that you are no good, is the fact that you're self-sabotaging proof that you're no good? No. That's called intimidation. When you start with a conclusion about someone, that someone is no good. Let me just fix something on my audio. There we go. To start with the image of someone as bad, which is what oppressive groups do, original sin and all that shit. To start with the idea that a person is bad, and then whatever follows, to use it as evidence to support that original false belief, that's called intimidation. That's a kind of violence that is characteristic of the Pathologos. So the self-sabotage becomes a self-fulfilling prophecy. If you have that voice telling you, oh, no one's going to listen to you when you need to say something important, then you might listen to it and go, oh, they're not going to listen. And now you're distracted. Now you're being unclear with what you're saying. You might even stutter, which might result in them not being able to follow or listen to you. And then you walk away from that experience and saying, see, people don't listen to me. I was right at the beginning. That's called being stagnant. There is no development for someone who is carrying that first false conclusion. Everything will just support that false conclusion. Maybe you know a racist or a prejudiced person. That's their whole life. The ignorance they got from their childhood, their whole life just becomes a bullshit way of justifying that ignorance. That's the cause of human problems. Let's look at Palestine. The Jewish people start with a image, oh, these people are savages, they need to be eradicated. And then anything they do is evidence. Look at them trying to fight back against oppression. Savages. We were right to cause them to fight back against us. See? It's circular. So what? So understand this, which we can do because we have the handbook, because we're fortunate enough to be born right here, the turning point, where we have the handbook that gives us the material and the game, the noblest game we can play to solve problems. We have a potential to turn it all around. Now, whether or not everyone else turns it around and we save our species, don't know, but you can. And it's that immortal part of your soul that is here to learn something that is the most important. It's for you to free yourself about a false image of you that you are carrying. That's fucking you up in a way where you don't have to, because you're really brilliant. You're actually beyond brilliant. You are the cause of brilliance. Mind itself that is sending you all this communication to help you is an overflow of yourself. Yourself is so brilliant, so divine, that it's actually beyond brilliance and divinity. It's the cause. So when we do experience mind itself, the soul turns around and experiences the immortal part of your soul. You think, wow, it's me. Pure being is me. Now, as a warning, that belief can get you stuck, or that recognition can get you stuck. You have to also recognize, yes, it's you, but it's your mind, or rather, it's you experiencing yourself as mind, as Usia, but still there has to be a cause. That's the self. So notice, all that is objectively true, understandable, and verifiable through this game that we are playing together. But it doesn't feel true now. That's why you need courage. How are you going to go on the quest to play the game of dialectic, of reading in this way, of sharing this with your friends, of exploring and putting yourself in a wonder about the logos at all times? How are you going to even start that journey unless you think it's possible that you can get there? That's why courage has to start as a belief. Now, it's the best kind of belief because it's a belief based on reason and evidence and the direct experience of the smartest, wisest people to ever walk the planet: Socrates, Homer, Pierre Grimes. So out of all of the possible beliefs humans can have, this is the best one by those standards, but also because it's only a stepping stone. That's courage. So keep that in mind when that self-sabotage comes up. And last time we read the author, Pierre, saying, so when those self-sabotaging thoughts come up, don't take them literally. Answer them like you would a friend. If your friend suddenly said something mean to you, you wouldn't go, oh yeah, that's right. You would say, what? Where'd that come from, dude? Why are you saying that? Aren't friends supposed to build each other up? Why would you be? By the way, what's your evidence? Maybe I'm missing something. Help me learn. This is what you would say to a friend. Treat your thoughts the same way. Treat your mind the same way. Treat your daemon the same way. Also, if it's against the self, it's, as we said, as we are holding on to with courage, it's not going to be true. So it's not literal. Answer it like you would an accuser in like Socrates in his trial. Oh, you think philosophy is no good and I should dig holes like my pappy said? Let's look at that. Let's answer that. Define philosophy. Oh, you can't? Let me help you. The human purpose and quest to know ourselves through reflecting on ourselves, discovering the logos, mastering it as an art, using that art of dialectic to free ourselves from what's false, discover what's truth, what's true, integrate it into our own way of being in a way that can benefit not just our current life, but our soul. The lessons we're learning here are going to pay off tomorrow when our soul is out of body, so that you can understand, recognize, know, and function through your truest self in a way that benefits all. Now, the voice that says philosophy is no good, what part of that definition is not good? See? This is the significance of putting it into words, logos. You have a voice. You're here to use it. So, last time we talked about, well, is this personal or universal? Both. In other words, the soul having a problem and having to come into this reincarnation through time, which gives us the time, gives us the conditions to reflect and learn and develop an understanding of the dialectic, an understanding of understanding, you could say. That's universal. We're here because our soul had some sort of problem in the higher realms that we are here to look at. It's universal that you are born into a family you're dependent upon. It's universal that every parent, whether they like it or not, is going to at some stage play out that thing that their soul has been seeking, not the Lamborghini, but the lemon. In other words, people want to be the knower, but if they're only at the level of opinions, you can't help anyone. You need an art. You can't help anyone in medicine unless you have the art of medicine. You can't help anyone in fixing their computer unless you know about how computers work. Equally so, we all want to be knowing and wise and caring, but how many people know it? How many people study it? How many people have a false idea about what's good so that they are actually doing harm when they are feeling really good about how knowing they are? Everyone. It's universal. So what? So it's universal that all human beings will face those conditions and get a false view of the self that reflects the soul's problem, that causes all our difficulties, self-sabotage, and blocks, that is solvable. That's universal. But that has to be joined with the particulars of your soul. In other words, two siblings or twins could be in the same situation with the same conditions, but the way they make sense of that origin scene will be different. There are no two pathologos the same. So that's what we were exploring last time. In other words, we bring into our birth, we bring into these universal conditions a particular individual, you could say, characteristic, or our own idiosyncrasies. I don't know how to say idiosyncrasies. We bring in our own idiosyncrasies. That's not the word. But that's the union of our unique way of interpreting things falsely and the universal. All human beings get pathologos. When they come to birth, it brings into existence your problem, your pathologos. You are a snowflake in your problem. Not in the negative sense that fascists and people sick with their pathologos would say, oh, you don't like my injustice, you are a snowflake. Fuck you. That's bullshit. Don't diminish selves. Especially selves that are standing up to injustice. I mean snowflake in the positive sense. Unique. There is a beauty in how all of the parts of your problem fit together and support each other and confirm self-fulfilling prophecy each other. There's a kind of oneness that can be even seen as beautiful. That's the snowflake nature of your problem. We're all snowflakes, that's the universal, but your one is unique to you. Which is why you have to play. I can't solve your problem for you. Socrates or Pierre can't solve your problem for you. Your soul is here to learn how to reflect in a new way. Your soul is here how to learn to play the game of dialectic, the human game. Your soul is here to gain the benefit of this upgrade in how you can function, which might be needed to hang out with better men and gods who have completed their work here, says Socrates. And it's your job to free yourself from something false that has been preventing you from playing those higher games. So, in a similar way, on this channel, I am trying my best to give what's needed for you to play, anyone watching, without ruining your question, without solving your puzzle for you, without giving you any answers or advice or anything like that. I mean, there is one. Advice is based on opinions. The only advice is courage. The only belief we start with is courage. To hold on to this as possible because the people who have got there. It's like saying, I've never been to LA before. But I'm willing to get in a car and drive in that direction because others have gotten there. People who I trust, people who have shown themselves to be trustworthy, people who live in LA maybe, people who go there often. That's Socrates and Pierre Grimes. That's why we read those two books. And that's the only belief we hold on to until, of course, we get to LA and see it for ourselves. So what I'm doing is trying to make this most important and most exciting discovery accessible to people, fun, encouraging, while pointing to the things that we need to look at to play the game without actually playing it for you. I can't roll your character. So I do a lot of things like saying, oh, look, a set of terms, write them out. What do you do when you have a list of terms? Arrange them with the dialectic. That's it. Just like if you're playing a Sherlock Holmes game, you have to look for the clues from the crime scene. And then you have to arrange them in some sort of Sherlock Holmes video games sometimes have like a mind map or something to see how the clues all fit together. Now, the crime scene is an analogical representation of what's the archetypal mystery that all humans get because it's not personal and universal? The origin scene. The crime scene is to the origin scene. We are hunting for the origin scene of our Pathologos, where we first were given this fake charade, injustice, some insult against ourselves. And it was that origin scene, that crime scene, the real crime scene really, which caused the thing we need courage to stop at the beginning, because it's a false belief that self in reality is something other than good. You're no good. You are incapable. Reality is no good. That's the Pathologos. That's why we need courage as a belief until we learn how to understand the crime scene, the origin scene, and free ourselves from it. Then we won't need it as a belief. We'll see it ourselves. Courage will upgrade. So, crime scene to gather the clues, and then Sherlock Holmes goes back to Baker Street, talks with his friend Watson. Again, there's a reason why Sherlock Holmes is so popular. It's pulling out more of what's true in philosophy. If philosophy is the paradigm, is the model, is what we all seek a Lamborghini in our garage. If philosophy is that Lamborghini, then anything else that has a universal appeal will have a universal appeal because it's taking bits and pieces from this. That's why Sherlock Holmes has such an appeal. That's why you can map the same elements of Luke Skywalker's journey in Star Wars to Harry Potter's journey in Harry Potter. So what? When we realize this in philosophy, what do? Oh, a set of terms. Harry Potter, Hunger Games, Star Wars, Sherlock Holmes. Oh, a set of terms. What do you do with terms? You have to go back to Baker Street, talk with your friends to organize those terms. That's the dialectic. Now, Sherlock Holmes picks out that part. Yes, he has the crime scene, he gathers terms, and then he goes back to reflect, ousia. It's not the experience, it's the reflection that benefits us. And he has a friend. What do we say about philosophy? It's not a solo quest.
You're a wizard, Harry.
I'm looking for someone to share in an adventure.
It's a win-win.
That part of Sherlock Holmes, whether people knew it or not, is a part of the philosophy game and therefore will speak to their soul. That's one of the reasons why it's so appealing. What we want to do is say, oh, we can take these terms, arrange them in a hierarchy. Sherlock Holmes is quite near the top. And ask the question, what is the cause or what is the ideal? In other words, if our soul seeks a Lamborghini such that, we can fit a Sherlock Holmes in our garage, we can fit a Star Wars. People can become obsessive about Star Wars and Harry Potter. Why? Because our soul is obsessive about knowing self-reality and good. These things are just reflections that tick enough of the boxes, look enough like a car, that people can become obsessed with them. What we need to do is ask, okay. What's the real thing? First of all, how do we get the lemon out of our garage? That's midwifery. What's the real thing? This. So, what do? We look for terms from the crime scene. We try and find the origin scene of our pathologos, look for the key terms, which means we have to learn how to pick out key terms. What's that called? The self-logos. So in that origin scene, we're looking for certain things. Where was there an image of beauty? Where was there an image of justice? Where was there logos being blocked maybe? Where were you not allowed to ask questions? Logos, beauty, justice, these are all logos terms. That's our detective training that allows us to know what terms to pick out as clues. If someone just presented an origin scene, a regular layperson, they don't know what's significant about that. They might even agree with it. Yeah, I'd do it to my kids too. Tough love and all that. That's the self-logos. That's what makes us a detective. So, crime scene is the origin scene. The clues are to the self-logos terms. Now, how do you solve the mystery and put the clues together? Usia, you go back somewhere safe, somewhere supportive, this channel, this community, a coffee, either a real life or an online coffee date with someone that you can reflect on those key terms. They can ask you the questions so you can solve the puzzle. Watson asks the questions to get Sherlock Holmes thinking. So Watson, if we were to redo Sherlock Holmes, Watson would be perhaps more an even greater detective than Sherlock Holmes, maybe, or they're equal, because the person can ask you questions to get you to reflect on those terms and arrange them in the order. What are the clues? The self-logos terms. What is the order? The dialectic. Two forces. Isn't that interesting? We talked about the pathologos coming into existence from two forces. The universal human part, seeking the good, seeking the true, and our unique way of interpreting that our soul brought with us. The particular with the universal, these two forces. Equally so, there are two forces needed for this: self-logos and dialectic. Finding the clues, putting the clues together. The crime scene, Baker Street. Our origin scene, and philosophical midwifery. That's the game. Isn't that neat? I think it's neat. Tell your friends. So, on that note, with that summary and introduction, let's jump in and read the next section, which is the logos. Ooh. Remember the logos? The key terms that we pick out that can be arranged into the dialectic, that can solve problems, that can free us from our problems, that will benefit our life and our soul, and also free our garage so we can read the Mino tomorrow and find the real Lamborghini, find the real nature of the good, discover the true nature of self. Remember that, Logos? Well, now we are going to read about it together. Hooray. Tenth, the Logos. Knowing there is a possibility of resolving our own pathologos. Now, knowing there is a possibility, what started as courage to hold on to the belief that it could be possible to solve our problem and know that reality is in fact one, good and true, despite our feelings and our thoughts and our beliefs that tell us the opposite. Well, that started as a belief, but it becomes a knowing. Why? Well, in reading, it became understanding. If you were organizing the terms with the dialectic, like I hope you are having fun with, or thinking about doing and doing. So, is that enough to know that problems are solvable? Knowing there is a possibility of resolving our own pathologos, hooray, places a new responsibility upon us. We want our understanding of ourselves to be confirmed in our own experience. This is the big one. Talking about the transition from the practiced virtues to the real virtues, or from belief to knowing. We need to confirm it in our own experience. We recognize within us the need to demonstrate, right? What's the dialectic? Definition and then demonstration. Our soul has a need to demonstrate to ourselves that our speculations and dialogues have a vital connection to reality. This isn't just rhetoric. This isn't just debate bro bullshit. This isn't just sophism. This isn't just Stoic philosophy. This isn't just Roman education system that we brought into where anything is anything and who gives a shit. Well, let's let the capitalists fuck everyone over. And no one asks questions, no one define, no one be able to judge what's good and what's bad. Hey, maybe capitalism's good, maybe Nazism's good. Who's to say what's good and bad? That's our rubbish education built off the Roman tradition, which is a counter-attack to what Socrates left us, the true model of education. That's what we're learning here. What's one of the key differences between the horseshit we are fed and the truth is we can demonstrate, confirm for ourselves, not because some guy in a big hat tells you heaven exists or hell exists. Confirm for yourselves that what we are hypothesizing, speculation, what we are understanding through dialectic and dialogues, have a vital connection to reality. It's provable. It's objective. What do we need in our world? Objective, provable understanding of what's good so we can actually have reason and care. What does reason and care do? Threatens ignorance and harm. So what do people with the money in capitalism try and do? Prevent you from reason by throwing at bullshit debate topics and rhetoric and nonsense, how to talk, how to never answer a question. But also, hey, we're not going to reason, we're going to yell at each other. Because somehow if I yell, I'm right. Just like how Trump talked to Zelensky last week. Obviously, Trump is in the wrong, but the Republicans know if they yell and cry, it will appear like they're right because that's the bullshit pathologos their family played. So what do? Try and defeat reason and defeat care. How do you get people to stop caring for other people, considering we are all the same mind, here to know ourselves as mind? We're all on the same quest. We have different accents. We have that uniqueness. But we're all the same mind, trying to know ourselves on the same quest, ultimately to know the self. How could you not want to care for that? How would you not want to care for something that's essentially you? Fear and hate is what they market on TV through lying that they call news media. Fox has been taken to court to say you are lying and claiming it's news. Their defense was it's not actually a news program, it's pretend. If you are smart, you'll realize it's pretend. Therefore, we are allowed to lie while also lying by saying it's news. And we are going to use that lie upon a lie to also lie and say that your problems are not caused by Pathologos and a lack of being able to understand and judge objective truth and goodness, so that we demand that level of reason be applied to our society so that we can address the problems caused by society, specifically wealth inequality and capitalism. Instead of that, hate people. Your suffering isn't caused by capitalism. No. It's that poor person over there. Ooh, they look different than you, don't they? Hate them. Oh, and they're probably criminals, and they're probably trying to sell drugs to your kids. Lie after lie after lie to do what? Stop caring for your fellow man and stop your ability to share in the logos. Reason and care. That's what we need to take back from the Pathologos and from the human beings who are mythologizing or personalizing the Pathologos in everyday time. In other words, all of these people who rise to these positions of power within capitalism are just reflecting their snowflake, reflecting their particular kind of Pathologos, only with more destructive force because they have more power. So we are realizing that playing this game is sharing in the logos. That's what gives us reason. The more that we can reason, the more that we can recognize for ourselves we are part of the same game, the same quest. We are part of the same mind. We are the same Usia. There is the same immortal soul behind the whole thing. And the ultimate goal is the same for all people, to know and show the self. That's something we can come to through reasoning. And when we recognize we are all the same self, seeking the same good, we naturally care. Reason and care. Good head, good heart, we might say. Oh, and think about the people you really look up to. If you're the sort of person who likes this content, I would imagine if you reflected on the other people that you like, would it be true to say that they stand out to you as someone you like because they have a good heart and a good head, reason well, which allows them to act with care?
It's a win-win.
As our conclusions bind us, they also have the power to loosen the bonds of the Pathologos. Actually, let's do this new thing that we're doing now. We did yesterday, where we read the whole thing first and then we go through and highlight stuff, because I want to highlight everything. It's just so rich. And just all of the points are so good. So let's read the whole thing first and then go back and color it in with our highlighter. Okay, it's a big section, so how many pages do we have? 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7. 7 pages. We just cut it down into like half. So let's read 3 and then we'll go back and review. Remember the 2 qualities? The universal and the particular, the logos and the dialectic, the terms and the structure, and here, the reading and the review, the experience and the ousia, the reflection. The head and the heart is another duad. By the way, I just gave a list of pairs. Write it down somewhere, because that's clues, a list of terms. What are you going to do with a list of terms? Ooh, I'm glad you asked. We've been talking about how we play. It's the archetype of the hero's quest. There's us, reading in this new way as philosophers. We talk about gathering questions, carrying them in our inventory, a bunch of questions. Also, our speculations, our hypotheses. At the end of all dialectics are hypotheses. Possible solutions we carry. We don't pick favorites, we carry them all to see what plays out as true. I mean, we do judge. This is based on our conclusions and our reasoning. But another thing that we have in video games or mythology, skill trees over here. As you go on your journey, you pick up certain things that enhances that particular thing, gets better and better. Level it up. So the equivalent is these sets. So here I gave you a set of 2s, logos and dialectic. That goes into your skill tree of 2s. Why? Because if you have logos and dialectic and then you come across in your reading another pair, like we just talked about, looking for clues and then reflecting on them, or the crime scene and Baker Street, there's another 2. So that goes into your skill tree. So what? Well, now you've got 2 things in the same skill tree, you can combine them. Is there an analogical relationship between a crime scene and Baker Street with this other 2, the logos and dialectic? Ooh, maybe there is. That becomes a hypothesis you can carry and try out. So maybe you want to write a story about a detective. He goes to a crime scene, but to you, you're using it to explore your origin scene. You're making your art meaningful. Now I've given you a whole bunch. Now we have together been reflected. I love your art, thanks. Thanks. And you can wonder about it as you walk through your day. Oh, another pair. Oh, logos and dialectic. That's interesting. Oh, you know who I look up to? People who have a good head and a good heart. I wonder if that can be connected to logos and dialectic. What about this crime scene in Baker Street? Does that relate to head and heart? Sherlock Holmes is a good head, and Watson supposedly, at least in the TV series, represents his humanness. That's the thing, we're human. Stay human. Master the self logos and transcend humanity, but also stay human. So the head, the logos, the reason maybe is Sherlock Holmes. What keeps Sherlock Holmes empathetic, caring? Watson. Head and heart. Ooh. Did we just shine a new light on that Sherlock Holmes series? That's the significance of the skill trees. Notice your skills are insights. Your skills now is screenwriting, not just screenwriting. Who to look for in a friend, good heart and good head. A Watson and a Sherlock. You've leveled up your ability to pick friends. To write detective stories. But also, maybe you've shed more light on what you are ultimately seeking yourself. Not just to know the self with your head, but to function with it, to benefit with your heart. I don't know. All of the reflections I've just done happened because of a skill tree, and what I ended up with is more questions to go into my question sack and more possible solutions that I can test and use. That's the game. And as I said, I'm trying my best to point to the patterns that exist so that you can play the game without scoring all the goals myself. Showing that it's possible, showing you how to do it, encouraging you, pointing out that it's fun and exciting and meaningful. And you kind of know that you're doing your best so you can relax even if things aren't going well. It's like, well, I'm literally doing my intended purpose as best I can. I guess all I can do is see what happens. I'm playing my part. That's a big relief. You feel it too. So I'm trying to encourage, point to it without ruining your own questions by giving you any answers. Which is actually a good principle. If someone comes along and says, can I give you some advice? Fucking no. Get out of here. I don't want your dumb answers. However, if you want to share some questions with me, I can meet you there. So let's go back and let's read the first couple of pages in this section. Without highlighting, let's see if I can hold back. As our conclusions bind us, they also have the power to loosen the bonds of the Pathologos. We can see the evolution from belief into oh my god. We were just literally talking about moving from belief into logos. I want to highlight it so bad. I won't highlight it. I'll talk about how I want to highlight it. So what are we doing? We're evolving from belief into the logos as we reflect on what was necessary to emerge from the web of the Pathologos. Talked about the snowflake, the different parts connected. You could also see it as a kind of a web. Your problems, your beliefs. Like I stutter, but then I also trip, but then I also do this when I talk to these people. It all fits together. And then afterwards I say, look, I guess I was right the whole time. So a web. We reflect on what was necessary for us to emerge from the web of the Pathologos. The movement is integrative. It brings what was separated together into a unity. Each philosophical midwife talk is an opportunity to add another piece to the puzzle. Keep talking. And each piece is tested in the immediacy of our everyday life. We test it. It is tested. Because we carry our understanding with us. Understanding is not something we can choose to turn on and off. It is our way of seeing. We see through what we understand. We do not have to learn to act with understanding. We act through what we understand. In this change, we become more attentive to what unfolds before us and act more decisively. While it takes courage to return, it's interesting. We become more attentive to what unfolds before us, and in response, we act more decisively. While it takes courage to return to these unresolved conflicts, it takes cool-headedness. So we talked about the virtue of courage. Starts as a kind of highest belief that then we test through our understanding and our experience and upgrades. Another one of the four virtues, along with courage, is cool-headedness, sometimes called temperance. But we don't use that word anymore. Cool-headedness is probably better. We need cool-headedness to keeping your cool in those ups and downs that you go through while maintaining your courage. That's cool-headedness. While it takes courage to return to these unresolved conflicts, it takes cool-headedness to allow ourselves to be with our understanding. Interesting. We talked about mainstream media of the capitalists and tyrants and stuff who want us to not be cool-headed. They want us to be afraid and reactionary. But if we're cool-headedness, we can be with our own understanding and be less likely to be fucked with or manipulated. By the way, I've noticed I'm swearing a lot today. I think it's because I'm kind of tired of pussyfooting around the fact that we are allowing the pathologos of these capitalists to murder people and end our species and cause suffering, while literally they have so much money they can't spend it on anything. There isn't enough stuff that they can buy anymore, which means everything is now more expensive because only the rich can afford it, because they need to do something with their money. Otherwise, what's it all been about? So they're buying all their houses. My rent's doubled in a year. I'll probably never be able to afford a house. While the capitalists, the boomers, and the tyrants and stuff own 1 million houses, which gives them passive income. So they get $1 million a day that they can use to buy more houses. It's fucked. It's literally fucked. And it's fucked that no one's doing anything about it. We are. Hopefully. Again, secondarily, this is for your soul. The benefits should hopefully roll over into society. So, because of that, I kind of like, can we just say it's fucked? Can we just be adults here and say, yeah, capitalism's fucked. Let's not lie to prevent the crocodile tears of the like the bootlickers on TV, the ones that are on the television and in the marketing departments and on the news programs that lie to us, lies upon lies upon lies. They'll pretend to be sad when you say, hey, what you're doing is fucked. How dare you? But what if I say what you are doing is fucked? What are we doing? Haha. End of conversation. Nothing changes. Things stay business as usual. But my whole point is to make philosophy fun and make this a space where you can have fun reflecting. So I'm kind of in a bit of a dilemma. Do I just be honest about how fucked capitalism is? Or would the fact that I'm using that language make people feel less relaxed and less curious? I don't know. For me, it makes me more curious because, yeah, let's just be honest. Capitalism's fucked. Okay, well, what can we do? You can work on your own soul. Neat. Oh, and by the way, if enough people do it, we'll have what we need to fix capitalism. Oh, that's fun. Let's do that. But I am open to feedback. I've been streaming for a while, but I'm still learning how to stream well. What makes a good stream? Is it the space? Is it the companionship? Is it the consistency of streaming every morning? Maybe it's the honesty. Maybe just saying, yeah, it's okay to say capitalism is fucked if it is. And the people who say, don't say that, are usually the worst people, the bootlickers. You mustn't talk about politics or religion. You are just a peasant. Only the king and the priests may talk about politics and religion, but not at your dinner table. Remember that rule that they fed us? At Thanksgiving, no politics or religion. The most important things. Only we can. We are the elites. Bullshit. Fuck you. Now, we're not going to talk about it in the way you talk to us, the language of oppression and pathologos. We're going to talk in a better way that allows us to solve problems, see our sameness, and become people with better heads and better hearts. So if you have suggestions or comments, message me, email me, message me on Discord if you like. If you are familiar with streaming, or if you have any ideas of what would make this more fun and philosophy more accessible, please. It takes cool-headedness to allow ourselves to be with our understanding and not pushed around by those jerks. Cool-headedness, keep your cool. Handy tip from the Taoists, breathe deeply from some area near your belly button. I've never had anyone point out exactly where it is, but there's a energy center. If you breathe deep from your belly and you try and keep your belly out, that's what the Taoists do to try and keep cool-headedness. Other human virtues are also tested, other than courage and cool-headedness, as one proceeds. But by far the most important is the desire to discover truth about oneself and one's reality. That's the most important. So, is that an answer to my question? Should I tell the truth? Even if I'm using a naughty word? Not naughty. That's bullshit. Fuck you. Logos is logos. The oppressors don't get to dictate how we use the logos. The most important is our desire to discover the truth about oneself and one's reality. The natural result of this process is that the philosophical midwife, learns to trust in reason and to be guided by the principles of our art. As someone who's been doing this for many years, this is key. You have to trust the logos. You're sharing in something greater than yourself and facilitating, rather than carrying in your own opinions. This is a big one. This is even people who've been doing this for a long time. This is a big one for them to discover. Many people think midwifery is a way of presenting your opinions to look more wise. That's the Pathologos. It's not just conditions to pass off your stupid opinions or your beliefs as if they're true. No. That's the opposite. That's a misuse of midwifery. We are trusting in the logos, in reason, and to be guided by the principles of the dialectic, and it takes us. Be one with the force. Don't fight the river as it carries you. Facing a problem, the good river, by the way. Of course, courage is fighting the negative river until, of course, we reach the stage where there is no turbulence. The cause of the turbulence is gone. But as a midwife, you're in the river. The good one. Trust in reason and be guided by the principles of our art. Facing a problem brings us to see that there may be something we haven't grasped with clarity. For to attempt to achieve what we have failed at before is to reopen those earlier conflicts, and that means we run the risk of encountering failure once again. There is no alternative if we seek to realize our dreams, because whatever part of our conflicts has not been seen will emerge to block us. Thus, it is a certainty that these conflicts will reappear. But what is different is the knowledge that all this can be anticipated and it can be studied. And in the very moment of its appearance, there is a challenge to resolve it. We are given an opportunity to confirm our understanding, test it, and improve its precision. And it is in this process we enter into the Logos. By doing what? We're picking up where we left off, which does mean encountering the same sort of failures we have encountered before, which may be why we gave up in the first place. But this time, we are anticipating those problems. We can understand those problems, and we have an opportunity to confirm our understanding from our midwife talks, our midwife dialectics. We can test it to confirm and improve the precision of our seeing, which we act through. So we improve our seeing and we improve our acting. This process is called entering into the Logos. Wow.
It's a win-win.
But the Logos is not merely understanding, for the understanding that one has reached must be tested and confirmed in experience. That's the difference maker. If you want one sentence to say the difference between anything else and this, even scientific beliefs, which are far better than prejudices or supernatural beliefs, scientific beliefs backed by evidence isn't understanding. It's scientific beliefs. And you can't confirm an experience. That's why scientific theories change. Logos is different. Logos is an understanding that is true, universally accessible to those who are able and open, and can be tested and confirmed. The confirming is an integrative moment, for without testing and validating our understanding in our reality, we are left only with possibilities or likely stories. Just like science. Whatever one is seeing and understanding, it will not be retained, and its maturing power will be lost unless confirmed in one's experience. So we say half the time doing things, half the time reflecting on things. Half the time midwife talks, half the time testing it. Otherwise you won't retain it, it won't change you. It won't change how you see and how you act. It is by returning again and again to test one's vision in one's present circumstances that maturity is gained and the Logos becomes manifest. So this was the big question of the text. No
one seems to be learning or growing or addressing actual problems.
The insight Pierre Grimes had when fighting Hitler in World War II, walking down that Roman road, realizing, hey, this road we're walking along to fight the Nazis, the Romans walked along hundreds of years ago to fight their barbarians. We're not learning anything.
No one seems to be learning or growing or addressing actual problems.
So the quest is to become rational, caring, so you can solve problems, so we can become, in a word, mature. How can we be so immature when it comes to ourselves, and yet we are increasing our understanding of things like technology? So how do we become mature? By returning again and again to test one's vision and understanding in one's present circumstances. That's how maturity is gained. and also the Logos becomes manifest. Talked about what the two forces coming together to manifest the Pathologos: human condition, your soul's problem that causes your unique interpretation, manifests your snowflake Pathologos, your unique Pathologos. Here we are saying the opposite thing. The Logos, the thing we want to manifest instead, becomes manifest in this way. He's giving us the instructions for how to play the game. We know too well that only in our present circumstances can we confirm and verify our understanding. Since being in a problem is responding to the present as if it were that past scene. We apply past solutions to analogous situations in the present without recognizing that the scenes are only in part analogous. Thus, in seeking out those present scenes that are analogous to those early Pathologos scenes, we find the area in which we can emerge from the catacombs of false belief. There's good imagery that fits really nicely into video games and popular mythology and cool stuff. Catacombs. You're in the catacombs. It's like a Diablo. You're in those catacombs of false belief. We can emerge only when we realize that we can only emerge from those Diablo catacombs if we seek out present scenes that are analogous to our Pathologos origin scene, the crime scene, remember, from Sherlock Holmes. We find the arena in which we can emerge. Okay, so yes, we are finding our early Pathologos scenes, that's the past, seeking out present scenes that we can go back to and try and reach with greater success or greater excellence. That's the arena of how in which we can emerge from the catacombs of false belief. Because it is there that we can test whether or not we are free of those conclusions that bind us to the past. This is another big one. We're reading the Meno every second day at the moment. And one of the questions is virtue learnable? If it's learnable, learning is really remembering what the immortal part of our soul knows. That's a conclusion that Socrates gave us through a dialectic. Again, if it doesn't make sense to you, you'll jump in and read it with us. You can find the playlist on the YouTube site. There's a link below. Why is that important? Well, now we know what learning is. Moving from beliefs to understanding, to nous, which is a remembering of the immortal part of our soul, which is experienced as ousia, self knowing itself as ousia, but it's experienced as a brilliant light experience. It is it's so overwhelming. It's everything all at once. It's immensely beautiful. It's perfectly just. All of these self-logos terms. It's perfect courage. It's perfect sound-mindedness, by the way. So it's in this experience that those practice virtues upgrade. But it's also so overwhelmingly intense that those who experience it usually can only stay in it for a few moments. That's how intense it is. Whereas what he's talking about here is so that's one kind of enlightenment, nous. But in the Meno, we're asking the question, is there a state beyond that overwhelmingly intense, beautiful bliss experience? Is there an even higher good that could be the cause of that? And is that access to that good beyond the experience of goodness, is that good virtue? Or the self beyond the experience of self, is that our goal? So two different levels of enlightenment. One overwhelmingly blissful and intense, one seemingly without any qualities, because it's the cause of qualities. Why are we talking about those two levels, two kinds of enlightenment experiences now? Well, that intense blissful one would be obvious. You know when you're in it or not. Sometimes other people, like the story of Achilles, when Achilles, after he reflected on his dreams and reflected on his problems, he had a brilliant light experience in the Iliad, and others could see it. He radiated golden light, like a Saiyan. Whereas here, it seems that what we are getting is more like the other experience, which is less noticeable. We're taking stuff away rather than being slapped in the face by something that you can't. That is profoundly intense. So, how do you know that you've been successful if it's a state of enlightenment or a state of self that doesn't have that immediate blissful impact? Here. It is here that we can test whether or not we are free. You might not realize you're free. It wasn't fireworks like that noose experience of Usia. So how do you know it's there? Gotta test it. In seeking out present scenes that are analogous to those early Pathologos scenes, we find the arena in which we can emerge from the catacombs of false belief, because it is there that we can test whether or not we are free of those conclusions that bind us to the past. While it is clear that the imposition of belief establishes power and authority over the subject, it is not at all obvious that we always have the opportunity to get out of it. It ain't always obvious that you have what you need to free yourself from where you're stuck. In every moment, there is a chance to get out of our submission, regain our integrity. And that's what we've been talking about. We're reflecting on how this manifests in society, looking at people who have authority and power, and what do? They try and impose beliefs. So they do everything to stop your heart and head. Why? Because beliefs are fucking stupid. Beliefs are stupid. Beliefs have nothing to do with truth. There is no rule that says you have to believe something is true. That rule happens with knowledge and understanding, not for belief. You can believe any old garbage, and if you manipulate the beliefs of others, you can establish power and authority over the subject. That's the manipulation of the pathologos writ large in our society. That's humans' problems today. But we can get out of it. Good news. Get out of our submission, regain our integrity, and in this struggle, we become more authentically ourselves. There we go. That's what we're after. The network of the Pathologos is what we struggle against, and its formidable structure is nothing other than that set of interpretations Ever notice that they're a certain type of person who just interprets over everything? The reactionary right, often, baby brain people. They make up some scenario that's not there. That's their interpretations. That's really telling on themselves because their interpretations is their unique expression of their problem. So they project onto other people their own bullshit and then they accept it as real and then get mad at it. What are the Jews saying of Palestinians? Oh, they're evil. What's the Jewish state doing? Evil. Genocide. What does Trump say? I'm only I don't trust these people because they are only interested in selfish things, because you're only interested in selfish things. So, what causes people to interpret and accept their own false interpretations as real? It's a formidable structure called the Pathologos. That's the underlying cause between this problem that you see if you ever try and talk to a right-winger or a reactionary, or someone who has been really suppressed through belief. Remember? Belief is good for truth? Nope. You can rank kinds of belief. You can say, well, pathologos are the worst. Prejudices are better. Scientific beliefs are better. But we're interested in understanding. So that would be a way of pulling out the key terms within the realm of belief, ordering them hierarchically, which will also point to their telos. Where does that hierarchy of beliefs, pathologos right at the bottom, prejudices, beliefs disproven by evidence, supernatural beliefs can't be proven by evidence, you just gotta have faith. Fucking bullshit. Anyway, simple beliefs, scientific beliefs, axioms, you could rank them in terms of truth. But then you have to ask the question, hang on a second, if scientific beliefs we all accept are much better than prejudices and racism, everyone knows that. Even racists know that. That's why they start by saying, I'm not racist, I'm just looking at the evidence and I have decided. And then they say something racist. We know that we value truth. Our soul seeks truth. What we don't yet understand as a society is that beliefs have nothing to do with truth. That's why they're a problem. You can't seek truth and get it through belief unless you're in the logos. Because courage is a certain kind of belief, the highest kind, beyond even scientific beliefs and axioms. And if you recognize that, you can ask, hang on a second, if we have this list of terms, clues, we arrange it, we go back to Baker Street, we arrange it, we realize, oh, the best ones are the ones that most participate in truth. Like axioms. Axioms are self-evident. If A equals B and C equals B, then A and C are equal. You can't prove that, but it's true. We intuitively grasp that as true. Scientific beliefs, we don't intuitively grasp E equals MC squared, but there is evidence and reason to support that conclusion. So we recognize those are the best ones. Those are the ones we use all the time. Try to. And the more racist people or more religious people, supernatural belief people or prejudice belief people, and of course the worst pathologos people, the worse we are as a society. We recognize this. But then if we've arranged it in that hierarchy, well, where's the question? Where's the puzzle? What puzzle are we solving in Baker Street? The goal, the telos, that to which it all moves. So if there's a hierarchy that you can move up, what are you seeking? Well, what's the hierarchy based on? Truth. You're seeking truth. If it has a limit, if axiom is the highest kind of belief, and we're seeking truth, where do we go after that? Logos, philosophy. Why? Well, because we are learning what beliefs are here to teach us. When we realize that there are beliefs in the physical world of becoming, we can follow them to the highest kind of belief that we can represent as the virtues. Beliefs about what's true, beliefs about this, beliefs about this. Because scientific beliefs are beliefs about the physical world. The physical world. This is the physical world. This is the physical world down here. Let's... Physical world. So we have Australia. We have Japan. We have America. We have this one here and this one here. That's our physical world. This is the realm of being. This was that bliss experience, and this is that pure experience that might be hard to notice unless you test your level of development in experience. So what? So all these other beliefs are about this realm. Scientific beliefs. But when we reach the top and realize, hang on a second, there are axioms that are always true, that even scientific beliefs use. Where do they come from? Why are they always true? That's the Logos. That's the introduction to philosophy. That's the introduction to understanding, or dianoia, which is the understanding of this realm. And that means you can confirm that understanding in direct experience, because this is the thing you can directly experience. This is the object of ousia. This is the object of remembering. This is the object of nous. Whereas this is just seen through your physical senses, so you can never know it for certain. And then, of course, if there is a cause even of knowledge, we can ask what causes that. And if it's beyond knowing, but it's the cause of knowledge. Oh, thanks. A rather accurate word atlas. Thank you. I was a cartographer in a previous life. If this is a higher state of the self that we are seeking, that's beyond knowledge, one of the biggest questions we have is, well, how do we know it if it's not knowing? How do we name it if it's beyond names? How do we understand it if it's the cause of understanding? How do we know and show the self? Oh, and by the way, everyone who doesn't point to that and wants you to accept advice, which is just their own dumb beliefs and opinions, which is why some people have kids, because no one cares about your dumb opinions except your kids who are stuck with you. Anyone who says stay in the realm of belief, do not move to scientific belief in axioms that will make you wonder, hang on a second, let's develop understanding. Let's experience it, confirm it in knowledge, and let's go beyond it. Anyone who says, nope, beliefs are sufficient, they are harming you, whether they know it or not. They are harming you because beliefs are stupid as a whole. Because pathologos, prejudice, simple beliefs, supernatural beliefs, these are all wrong, and they make up half of the category of belief. So in other words, you can be in the category of belief and be false. In other words, belief is not contingent on truth. So any politician who ever utters the word, well, I believe, out. Get the fuck out of here. If you were lying on a doctor's operating table and he had to make an incision on an artery, and he said, well, it's my personal belief that you should make the incision above the blockage. You go, what the fuck? I don't care what you believe. I want to know what's medically true. And I want you to display an understanding of the true facts. I don't want your personal opinions or beliefs to come anywhere near me as a professional. I'm not paying you for your beliefs and opinions, buddy. I'm paying you for your understanding of what's true and to use it to benefit. You would have the exact same conversation with your mechanic, with the pilot of your plane, with the architect of your house, with everyone. What we are realizing is, hang on a second, it's a principle, and therefore we need to also apply that principle as a standard to not just mechanics, architects, doctors, engineers, but politicians and religious officials, anyone in authority. Why do politicians and religious authorities, why are they the only two who get a free pass and are allowed to say, well, it's my personal opinion. Well, Mima on the farm said, you teach a man to fish and you teach him to fish, and then that's why I need all your money. That's why I'm removing healthcare, because my mama told me that, if you work hard, you pull yourself up, and it's a good old folksy wisdom. That's what all of these terrible, terrible souls who are claiming to be politicians say again and again. In other words, the same problem that is causing this suffering at a societal level is causing a problem within our souls, and it's merely a recognition that beliefs are a part of the logos, but a low part. And anyone who uses belief to stop moving out of belief, if anyone who says, hey, you want to be in my group, you have to accept a belief. Okay. And that belief is, our belief is always right and you can't go beyond belief. That's fucking stupid and oppressive. Who says that? Or religion. What's religion? To believe this belief. Is there any evidence? No evidence. No evidence for this religious belief. Why should I believe it? Because shut up. No, because your parents told you when you were too young to ask questions. That's where religious beliefs come from. Or maybe I'll tell you a story about God whispering it into my ear and I wrote a book and all that crap. Those fairy tales break down very quickly. No one believes that Joseph Smith was, usually it's from your parents. And what you think loving is because of your parents and your pathologos. So anyone who says beliefs are sufficient is a danger to themselves and others, because beliefs are only a very low step in how we can use our cognition, and you can't solve problems caused by beliefs with more beliefs. Israel is showing us that. You can't out-Jewish Islam. They're trying to, that's the genocide. Trying to solve problems of beliefs with more beliefs. That's stupid. You solve problems of beliefs from a higher way of thinking called understanding. In other words, you can't solve problems by the same level of cognition or the same kind of thinking that caused the problems. That's Einstein's quote. And as dialecticians, we want to help people remove the problems caused by those beliefs and those asshole authorities. Stop using asshole. Assholes serve an important function. Those garbage people of society that says, oh no, you can't understand, just believe me, and never go beyond belief. If you leave belief, you leave the family, you leave the church, you leave heaven, you suffer for eternity in hell. All that shit. Recognize that objectively speaking, people who do that are harming themselves and others. Therefore, maybe we should make some law about that and find those people functioning in that way and help them realize what they're doing by creating the conditions for their own usia, their own self, not punishment, not guilt or blame, self-reflection, dialectic. Because that's what solves problems. Why? Because self-reflection and dialectic is the functioning of a higher cognitive function called understanding. Understanding can solve the problems of beliefs, including the problems of certain authority figures who realize if I manipulate people's beliefs, I can get people to give me their money and have sex with me and stuff. Oh yeah, in the chat. Do they really harm you and stop your progress, or they just postpone the inevitable which is innate to you? Yeah, they're harming. I mean, if you wanted to create a story about how eventually we will all reach our end given enough time, I mean, you could, but what about all the suffering in the meantime? How many children's tears would you allow to give up? Oh, let's just give up. Let the capitalists do. Let the belief people, let the religious people, let the genocides happen. Let the children be tortured and murdered. Because eventually, it's inevitable, we will realize our nature. You could say that, but I would say, well, why allow the bad stuff? And also, in the Phaedo, Socrates says, hey, if you don't do your work here, it's not guaranteed that you are going to evolve in a way that's going to be good for you, helpful for you. In other words, he said, if you live your life where you can be learning the dialectic, where you can be learning the difference between belief and understanding, knowledge and self, if you have that opportunity and you don't, you might come back as a donkey or a hawk. They don't participate in the logos and language. So how long are you going to be suffering for until you take up the invitation? Oh, and by the way, if your pathologos results in you acting in a terrible, terrible way, Socrates even talks about people who are not able to return. Go to Tartarus. So it's not inevitable. He said, by the way, even if you are what regular people would call a good person, you do pretty much good things, but you did it through habit and your upbringing and not because of philosophy, same problem. He said, you'll come back maybe as an ant, social creature, but you didn't do your job. You can also ask another question. If you were to create a utopia, but it came at the cost of 1 million lives, would you do it? If you were to create a utopia that would last 1,000 years, but it came at the cost of 1,000 innocent children's lives, would you do it? If it came at the cost of a single tear of an innocent child, would you create that utopia? So yes, it's actual harm. If you believe them, you stop your progress, because that's what it's for. That's the nature of belief. Why? Well, because if you're thinking for yourself, why would you need to believe that guy? The guy telling you to have sex with him and give him all your money. You wouldn't have to believe other people, but what about systems built on authority, like the church, like all other groups, like the government? What about the king? Why does the king get all the stuff and the peasants have to suffer? Well, the official reason is God told the king that he should be king. Oh, brilliant. Oh, wow, really? Why should we believe this evangelist and not this evangelist? They say the same thing. Because God whispered in my ear and told me that I'm right and everyone else is wrong. In other words, all these terrible garbage people are wanting to create a fiction to say that my opinions are the best opinions. Why? Because everyone who hasn't done their job and reflected on their pathologos are looking for situations where they can know and show the self. Only it's not knowing and showing the self, because all human beings want that. That's here, knowing and showing the self. People who have not done midwifery and reflected on their problems and their beliefs are not knowing and showing the self. They're knowing and showing the same garbage person who presented their opinions as truth by crushing other people. That's the motivation. The thing is, in our world, no one cares about your dumb opinions, because dumb opinions only crush people. So some people go knocking door to door. Can I tell you my opinions about Jesus? Everyone says, get the fuck out of here. No, what? Your opinions? No, I don't want to hear your problems and your ignorance. You're a kid. That's why a lot of people have kids. The only opportunity to pass off their dumb opinions as if it's understanding, as if it's knowledge, as if it's the self, without actually learning any of that, without actually removing their false opinions, without doing any of the work. We call them sophists. And we're learning about them in the Mino. In the chat, and could it then be inferred that in order to not be harmed, you have to harm back the object of your trouble? Why does that follow? Why would you meet injustice with injustice? By not letting them share Oh, I see. Okay, so the way that you're using harm is different in the second instance. So let's read that again. And could it then be inferred that, we like inferring, pushing the implications, where does it lead? In order to not be harmed yourself, you have to what? Okay, so what's the definition of harm? To lie about the inadequacy of the self of another person, to crush their development of logos, to give them a false idea of reality and a false diminished view of their self. That's the harm. Do you have to harm them back? No. You are not saying to that person that they are inadequate, that reality is bad, and that logos is bad. You're saying the opposite. You're saying, hey, by the way, let's address the logos of your belief. Let's introduce understanding rather than kill understanding based on fear of me killing you. So when you're a kid, there's a fear of being murdered. You are a 3 or 4 year old kid. Your parents come in and share an opinion that their whole life is based on. And if you turned around and said, well, that's wrong, they could end your life. I took you into this world, I'll take you out of it, is something Bill Cosby would say often on The Cosby Show, America's Dad. And everyone laughed. Yeah, parents do say that. Agree with my opinions or I'll murder you. If I brought you into this world, I can take you out of it. Oh, what's the Jewish state doing? Murdering, genocide? Oh, interesting. So no, you don't meet harm with harm. You don't make things hot with ice. You don't make things cold with fire. What would you do instead? Oh, and if some garbage person came up to you, like let's say some extremely racist and sexist person, oh, he loves his opinions. Oh, and God whispered them into his ear. And his daddy was racist and sexist. And there's a whole group, and they have weapons. If that garbage person came up to you and said, let me share my racist and sexist opinions with you, would you be harming them by saying no? If you think, which is what your words are saying, that you do, then you are submitting to their tyranny of their ignorance and pathologos. Don't do that. Don't submit to someone else's problem, because you can't solve their problem. Find your problem, which is, why did you submit to this flavor of tyranny? If some Muslim came along and said, can I pass my sexist Muslim opinions on to you? You wouldn't listen. But maybe you grew up in a Mormon church and it's a Mormon saying, can I pass on my sexist opinions to you? Oh yeah, sure. Why that person? So we're looking for clues as to our problem. You can't solve their problem, so don't submit to anyone else's ignorance. But if you do find yourself diminishing yourself and pretending that this other person, equally filled with pathologos, because they were the only people interested in opinions. If you come across someone who's awakened philosophy, who've awakened to their life quest, who have accepted the hero's journey and is doing their job as a human being,
I'm looking for someone
You're a wizard,
to share
Harry.
in an adventure.
they are the sorts of person who would tell you, do not accept belief. Think for yourself. Let's have coffee and have a dialogue where I ask you questions so you can put the pieces together and gain your own clarity, insight, understanding, and maybe even knowledge and enlightenment. And then when you come back from experiencing the nature of immortality itself, then we can also have a conversation over coffee and wonder about its cause, moving us together in a fun, beneficial, everyone wins
It's a win-win.
way from this ignorance to understanding. Understanding is dianoia. Through dialectic on the self-logos, self-reflection over coffee, that can allow them to move beyond belief and gain understanding. And understanding they can then use to solve their problems of beliefs, because problems of beliefs are not solved with beliefs, but with understanding. Also, that kind of way of being allows you to not just understand, but opens your mind to directly confirm in experience the true nature of divinity, the true nature of ultimate reality. That's called nous. Justice and courage live there. They are called the Aideos. That's nous. And then, of course, the second coffee after they come back. Have a dialectic about same game, only the terms were not terms of our problem, clues of our problem, clues and terms of our origin scene. Now we are solving a different kind of puzzle, a puzzle about nous. What are the key terms you saw in your enlightenment experience? Oh, you have no logos, so you didn't recognize anything? Well, let's read these texts together so we can develop the logos and the dialectic so that when you go back to this thing, you can actually make sense of what you're seeing. It's no use there is some use of having an enlightenment experience before you have logos, because it can awaken you to the possibility that it's there, can inspire you, can even diminish if you have a false belief about yourself and you have a direct experience of yourself as eternity, you might diminish the force of your beliefs for a period of time. Doesn't remove it though. Again, you need this art of dialectic to remove your problems. But so instead of these terms, we have a new set of terms. Oh, you saw nous, you confirmed in experience the immortal nature of your own being. Oh, did it exist? Oh, it had existence. Oh, was it alive? It had some vitality, energy. Did it recognize itself? So it had intelligence. By the way, did you directly experience that reality was one and good and true? Oneness, goodness, truth? Oh, courage. So what are you doing? So you're finding the terms in this experience, having coffee, practicing the dialectic, the ousia reflection, so that you can find the cause of this. Just like in a crime scene, you look at the terms to find the cause, the crime, So too, in midwifery, you look for the terms of your problem in this kind of reflection, so you can find the cause of your problem, your pathologos. Just like in philosophy, you look at the clues of this nous experience, so you can find the cause of that. It's the same game all the way up. Notice, all of the qualities we've been talking about in this kind of actual friendship, actual loving relationship, actual mature relationship in sharing the logos, all of the qualities are the direct opposite of the conditions that were there in our origin scene. In other words, everything we just said that causes harm, take the opposite and you might discover the truth. For instance, in the Pathologos scene, were there any questions allowed? No. Were you able to speak up with the logos and dialectic? No. Was there any reflection on the important message of how you're a Jew and you're a chosen people and you're better than your friend Billy at school because he's a Muslim and he's brown? Any reflection on that? No. Why? Because those same two classes of people who for some reason in our society get away with being ignorant and stupid, we don't allow doctors or pilots to be ruling on their false beliefs, but politicians and kings do. Why? Because God whispered into the king's ear, God whispered into the Pope's ear. Bullshit. Obvious lie, but that's what the whole system's based on. That role, people with their pathologos seek to play too. We are all in it together. So people become parents and play the role of the king priest or the priest king, the two kinds of people who get away with the most harm. Priest king, but we're a priest king of our house. And these little 3-year-olds that we bring into the house and are stuck there, dependent on you, have to obey your stupid beliefs and oppression because you're the God king, you're the priest king. Do we solve the problem of the priest king by becoming a priest king and saying, no, not your opinions, my opinions, and I'll send you to hell? God whispered in my ear and said that you are going to hell. Story of human history. Human beings bound by their ignorance, their false beliefs called the Pathologos, functioning as priest kings to whoever they can, eventually fighting other priest kings, killing millions and millions and millions and soon potentially our whole species and our planet. Is what happens if you try and out God king, a priest king, out pathologos, a pathologos, out harm someone doing harm. You don't harm things to make them better. In fact, that entire premise is the idea of punishment, which is another lie to justify violence. We're not genociding the Palestinians to take their land and resources. No, we're teaching them how to be good people. We're teaching them a lesson. We're punishing them for making mistakes. How will they learn about how the world works unless we punish them? Punishment is a bullshit lie to justify the violence needed to maintain harm and oppression. Violence is fucking stupid. What do we do instead? Have fun, play the game, have coffee with the flamingo who loves coffee. See? He loves it. And reflect in this way where we remove punishment, which is needed to remove the blame game, which, as we've read already in this book, is absolutely essential to even begin. How can you play midwifery where you are looking for clues if you think any clue discovered is a justification for some piece of trash person to use violence against you? What? You made a mistake? Ooh, punishment time. I get to be the one that crushes you, so I can be just like my daddy who crushed me. That's the human condition. Sounds stupid, sounds baby brain. I want to crush people like my daddy crushed me so I can be daddy sitting in daddy's chair. Yes, that's the Pathologos. It is stupid, it is harmful, it is insidious. That's why, as we've been reading, we all have an obligation, a moral duty to reflect on our own Pathologos causing us to function in such a terrible fucking way to ourselves and to our planet and to our species and to all species. That's our job. And it's fun. And it's worth doing. And we can do it because we have the book. And the book specifically makes the point, hey, not only is the book saying beliefs and opinions are not good enough, it's helping us see for ourselves that reality itself does not want us to harm ourselves. We have the problems we have because there is some sort of intelligent force aware of all of the parts of us and is saying, you know what? You are carrying an insult against yourself. That you have to believe someone else because you're not good enough. Bullshit. I'm not going to allow you to believe something that diminishes yourself. That's what your mind is saying. Therefore, your mind is not only intelligent, but is caring. Your mind has the best head and the best heart. And it's saying, I'm not going to allow you to accept anything less than you, the true, amazing nobleness of yourself. Therefore, I'm going to give you problems until you pay attention and solve them. The book is saying that, and the book is showing you how to see that for yourself. Why? Because you have to test your understanding in direct experience to confirm all this is true. That's the game. Oh, and then, of course, after using what we're learning about how to arrange, how to look for the self-logos, number one, we're looking for the key terms as we read. Number two, how do we arrange it in the dialectic? Number three, how do we use that dialectic arrangement to have a dialogue with our friends over coffee? I'm out of coffee. Uh-oh. Two, free ourselves from our beliefs. To wonder about this realm, when we experience it, to wonder about our experience so we can get to this realm. To know the self. There might be another stage up here that Socrates hints at. This is, of course, phronesis, but there might be another stage of phronesis. Don't know. But after you've gone through that journey through the logos and dialectic, use the same logos and dialectic to come back and have a coffee with us and help us make that journey, because it's universal. Understanding beliefs and opinions are all stupid and wrong and cause conflict and bloodshed, but this is universal. It's universal in that you use the same universal game at every stage. You use the logos and dialectic to read. You use it to remove your false beliefs in midwifery. You use it to read Socrates. That's doing philosophy as well. You use it to reflect on your experience of nous. You use it to reflect on maybe even phronesis. You also use the same dialectic to benefit, using all of those things to benefit others. That's why it's universal. Another reason why it's universal is every human being is on the same game. So no one deserves to die. No one deserves to be poor. No one deserves to be stressed about where their next meal is coming from or whether or not they can have a house to live in. Fuck capitalism. Fuck it to death. No, that's terrible. I got to think of a better expression. Boo to capitalism. Yeah. Let's get rid of capitalism and replace it with something not so objectively harmful, and in fact, let's replace it with something mature, rational, and caring. It's universal. Everyone matters. Every mind matters, every soul matters. Everyone's here for a reason. But good questions though. What book? The book we're reading, this book here. There are 3 books. There is this book that we're reading here called Philosophical Midwifery, which is how to learn the art of the dialectic to remove what's false. So the analogy we've been playing with is everyone has a garage in their soul. A spot where the true nature of self and reality is supposed to sit. In other words, we're all born seeking the good, the self, and reality. But the problem is, instead of going out and looking for that Lamborghini to park it in our garage, when we are born into a family where they give us a lemon, a beaten up pile of trash. We have a lemon sitting in our garage. Midwifery is how to discover that the reason we haven't been searching for our Lamborghini is because we've been accepting a lemon. We didn't even know we had a lemon. We might not have even been aware that we had a garage. So becoming aware of our garage, becoming aware that there's a lemon in the garage and removing it, that's midwifery. Discovering the false view of self, reality, and the good that we are holding within us. And we discover that in this friendly, fun, new way of being that can unite humanity called the dialectic. The dialectic applied to removing what's false about self is midwifery. That's the first book. Now that we're free, what's the truth? How do we actually find the truth of self and reality? That's why we read Socrates. So half the time on this channel, we read the second type of book, Socrates. Someone who has mastered the dialectic and logos and is leading us in a conversation to develop that mastery of the dialectic applied to truth. So these are the 2 books that we get the clues from. We pull out the self logos and we have to play. We have to actually arrange it in our dialectic ourselves, talk about it, think about it, talk to our friends, wonder about it at all times. Because it's our purpose. It's our highest function. Now, the third type of book hasn't been written yet. Let's look at it. Yes, a book by Pierre Grimes. There's a section at the back done by Regina, who is a clinical psychotherapist. She's obviously PhD in clinical psychologist. So this art of the dialectic applied to solving our problems is the only form of psychotherapy that's been proven to work. So the second half of the book, the Regina part, is the scientific validation studies. Lots of graphs and things. Why? Well, we are understanding why it has to be true, but in the academic community, they like graphs and things. So it's communicating the truth of the logos in a language more familiar with academics. So those are the 2 books, and the third book What? Okay, let's find it. Oh, here we go. In philosophical midwifery, we use the same approach. Oh, interesting. The same art, the same approach, the same dialectic that we use in this book to remove our problems, in Socrates to seek the truth, in music to understand the Greek diatonic scale, in astronomy to understand the movement and motion, the motion and position of the planets. Is it the same pattern? Is that why we can say that understanding is universal? Because it's used everywhere. It's the fabric of reality. We're just using it for the most important things. What things? We're using the pattern to understand our problem, remove it. The dialectic, using the dialectic to seek truth. And the third book, the same approach to dreams as in the exploration of the Pathologos. And in these exploration of dreams, it is critical and decisive that subjects come to realize that their own development becomes the subject of their dreams. That their own development, some dreams give them a glimpse into their future. Some dreams have a professorial element. Other dreams capture the dynamics of being trapped in beliefs in the catacombs and present the horror of that condition. Oh, there's demons everywhere in Diablo in the catacombs. Indeed, once we see our predicament in dreams and in the waking world, once we see that our predicament being mythologized in our dreams represents analogically our everyday world, we will see the effect of these pernicious beliefs we are here to understand and free ourselves from. We may enter into a new stage and wonder if we can live without the chains and the supposed security we think our chains bring us. Dreams. Today we've been talking about the dialectic. One of our community is sharing art. So he's in the game, he's playing the game, he's watching, he's seeing what stands out for him, and he's communicating his thoughts, his questions in his art. So he drew a lovely picture, had words in it, which was even better, so it had like a thought bubble. And we talked about how if you're doing a dialectic on something, there are 4 categories of the dialectic to arrange your thinking. You can take the parts of that dialectic, the terms and the relationships expressed in your dialectical reflection on something. Let's say you're interested in beauty or the Pathologos, definition of the Pathologos, demonstration, how does it function, division, how does it affect other things, and then the conclusion. It's only 4 steps. Use that for your art. Have each of the terms a character. Have the relationships play out in the drama of your story. That's mythology. So we talked about the 2 books, Midwifery and Socrates, the Logos and the Pathologos. Mythology takes the principles of either or both and puts them in a story like Achilles. To remember, to communicate, to share with others, to reflect in a fun way. Now, what we just read here is we can see that even though dreams are not literal, it's not the same as the problems in our everyday life. It's similar. What's that called? Analogy. There's some same and some different. So, midwifery and pathologos, Socrates and logos, and the third between them, mythology. In your own art, to represent the terms and relationships, the principles of either of those things, to help others, to help yourself, to remember, or just to constantly be reflecting on the thing you're here to do. So you don't come back as an ant or a donkey or get stuck in Tartarus. But you asked about 3 books, not 3 activities. Midwifery, philosophy, and mythology are activities. Let's keep reading. The procedure for exploring dreams according to the principles of philosophical midwifery is being prepared in another work and will soon be available. There's our 3rd book. All right, thanks. Relying on your recommendation, I'll definitely focus on pursuing it soon. Sure. It's your job. Pay attention to your dreams as they help direct you to that activity. So there's the 3rd book. The one that is as yet unwritten. Who's going to write this book? Now, if someone's going to write this book, because what are those 3 activities? Midwifery, philosophy, and mythology. Mythology, as we do it, we just talked about. Doing our own dialectics to represent the logos or pathologos, and then making a story about it. But our dream master, the part of our mind that crafts and sends us our dreams, is doing that 3rd activity, mythology, itself to us. So self and mind is sending us our problems so we can learn the dialectic to remove problems. We're born into this reality where we forget the truth, so we learn the dialectic of the logos by reading Socrates to master the dialectic applied to truth. And we're also being sent by self and mind and the daemon our dreams, which is that 3rd activity. We are being sent a mythological representation of the terms and forces that are playing out either in our problem or in our quest for truth. That's dreams, which means we have the best, most profound, best head, best heart guide that's communicating with us every single night. And usually people dream 3 or 4 times a night. Therefore, it seems like it's pretty goddamn important to learn to listen to and to understand and to follow your dreams. How do you do that? All we know so far from the text is it's the same principles as the other ones. Midwifery and philosophy. And the book is not yet written. So who's going to write it? Well, it better be someone who is interested in truth, has that kind of soul, has his nose in this book, has his nose in Socrates, is sharing it with others, is playing the game, tries to do it at all times, seeking excellence. In other words, if someone's going to write this book, which is promised here and will soon be available, maybe it's our community. And if dreams are the guide to helping us do those other 2 things, dreams might be the way in. I'm trying my best to share the significance of the logos applied to those 2 things, freeing your pathologos, knowing the self. I'm trying to make it accessible, battling against 1500 years of oppression and suppression, Our education system that teaches the opposite of philosophy and tells us it's philosophy. A justice system that does the opposite of justice and tells us it's justice. Politicians that do the opposite of caring for the state and tells us it is. And so on and so on. All of these are the forces that I'm against as I try and introduce it as best I can. I'm still figuring out how to do that. I don't know what I'm doing. But to share this important information. It's not taught at schools. I've never seen an episode of Friends where Monica and Rachel are in their apartment and then a philosopher walks in and has a conversation about how Monica's dating problems could be solved if she paid attention to the messages in her dreams. And her dreams might tell Monica that the same problem she's having with this boyfriend she had with her last boyfriend, with Tom Selleck and Brad Pitt and Ant-Man, all of the people she dated on Friends. I've never seen that on Friends. Every episode should have one. Then they could actually solve their goddamn problems. So, in spite of all that, I'm trying to tell the truth, number one, which is, again, something that isn't always done, because what happens if you share the logos? Your pathologos will counterattack. You're saying beliefs are harmful? Well, I grew up Muslim, and Muslim beliefs are the best beliefs, and it's only going to get you into heaven. And I know that because my daddy said so, and he's the best, and he can fight your daddy. That's most people. It does sound like they're babies for talking in that way, but that's the kind of immaturity that the pathologos causes. That's why pathologos is so fucking evil. Not evil, we need it to do what we're here to do. It's actually beneficial when you have a greater perspective. But it harms us significantly. It's the cause of our human problems. So because of that, you weren't in the past, usually people didn't talk about it openly. They call it, what's the word? Esoteric. You had to be in the club. You have to show that you're actually interested in truth. You have to actually demonstrate you've gone out of your way for personal development. You've actually shown you're seeking excellence. You're actually reflecting on your problem. You're not like, I'm right because I was born Muslim and I'm going to fight anyone who's not Muslim. Or Judaism is best because mummy and daddy said so when I was 1. And I'm going to use that to justify murdering the Palestinian children. You can't be like that and be someone who's being introduced to this, because you'll just counterattack. What? I say we put an end to the logos and philosophy if we want to save the world with Islam. But in spite of that, I'm still talking about it because apparently the rules of the game has changed, because we have developed an understanding of technology without developing that maturity of our own selves. Our pathologos can play out with nuclear consequences, destroying the human race. And there might be a very, very important role that humanity plays within a greater whole, and therefore is worth saving. And the suffering of all those children being abused in the genocide, under capitalism, in poverty, in perpetual war, in child slavery. Maybe that, which is completely unnecessary, and every ounce of effort they put in is actually making the rich richer and them poorer. So not only are they being abused, they are building their own prison. Maybe that's worth removing, which means we have to tell the truth. So it's not esoteric anymore. You just have to be honest about it. We have to tell the truth, say it to our friends, say it to our teachers, say it to our bosses, say it to our politicians, because it's literally the only fucking thing that can solve problems. And it's ours. It's our birthright. It's our spiritual birthright. It's our golden age. It's reason itself. That's the stakes of talking about it, of sharing it, despite the risks of counterattacks, the ignorant trying to maintain their ignorance. So I'm trying to use metaphor and video games and fun things because it is fun. Sometimes I get angry at, not angry. I use forceful language to point to the significance of the stakes. I can't just say, oh yeah, child torture and genocide, and say, maybe we should stop doing that. Doesn't fit, does it? How about just fucking stop the torture of children, you ignorant jerks? And let's do your job. Get your nose in this book. How about we give you the space and time, whatever you wanted with your opulent wealth that came at the suffering and death of all these children, we'll give it to you. Not everything, but you have a house, food, car, everything that you could need. You don't need $1 billion a month. You can't spend $1 billion a month. That's why no one else has anything. That's why I can never have a house. That's why I can't afford groceries. Because they've got to get rid of $1 billion somehow every week. It's stupid. So you can't say all that and say, maybe, Mr. Elon Musk. No, you say that's fucking stupid. Stop being immature. Wake up. But I'm not saying it to anyone here. Just so you know, if you're here, you are doing, you're on the best path. You're rare amongst the rest of the people, and you're doing what you're playing the right game. But the reason I'm concerned about it sometimes is I want this to feel safe and encouraging and supportive. It's never personal, and if we're making fun of anything, it's only ever the Pathologos, so that we can all see together that it's absurd, but we're never making fun of you. Because you are the one suffering from it the most. So, that's what I'm doing here. Trying to, number one, introduce it. Number one, tell the truth about the things that are most important to tell the truth about. But also create a space where you realize that, no, it's not work. It's not school. It's not philosophy the way that they fucking shat on it at university. It's not education the way that they use it to fucking beat us down at schools. It's not learning the way at university, how to manipulate people to make profit. Business school, marketing school, yuck. It's not psychotherapy the way it's done today. Some weirdo getting you to repeat your problems and suffer through it again and again without being able to offer any solution because they don't have the solution, because this is the solution. That's why people hate shrinks and philosophers and academics and the education system and the justice system and the politicians and the kings. I'm trying to make clear that this is the exact opposite to all of those things who are claiming authority over those terms. It's not the authority. It's not true. And it's not fun. No one likes those things. No one likes the justice system. No one thinks the justice system is fun. Few people think, the lucky few, think school is fun. Work is fun. Going to a shrink is fun. It is supposed to be the most fun and free and curious and wondering and honest and open and supportive and beneficial. I'm trying my best to communicate that, what it is, which is the first half of the dialectic, and also communicate everything it's not. Because most people, like Socrates faced, have a false view of philosophy. That's one of the reasons he was killed. That was the reason he was killed. The truth of philosophy was different from the politicians who killed Socrates. So he had to, in the apology, answer his accusers. You think philosophy is bad? It's actually the best. Let's talk about why you have that ignorance and that prejudice. But we're also doing the same thing. So I'm trying to communicate that about philosophy. It's not bad, but I have to talk about how fucked it is without philosophy, while also trying to create a space of, yeah, it's cool and fun and interesting, and it can help everything you do. Your art you make, your appreciation of art, your fun, your video games, your relationships, your highest goals, how you feel at each moment, makes everything more interesting and fun and meaningful. So it's a bit of a balancing act to do both, but we're learning as we go, and that's the point. And every single podcast episode, I have an opportunity to do what we just read, which was confirm and verify that understanding. So this reflection gives me things to think about. I put words on the problem, the puzzle that I have. How do I tell the truth? Point to the stakes while also making it fun and accessible. That reflection on my puzzle with friends. Thank you, TV. Is the dialogue. Now, the better we both become at midwifery by reading this book, the better we can have this reflection, the better we can direct this reflection, the better we can share in the logos, the better we can navigate that reflection. But it's still the game. Reflection. Then I go out and have another podcast tomorrow and confirm and verify whatever understanding we came to together. It's a
win-win.
It's a win-win. So, that's what I'm trying to do, and that's what I'm encouraging you to do. And if anybody watching in live stream or in the YouTube videos, if you have ideas of how to do that, don't give me advice, but share your understanding of the question and then share your hypotheses. Maybe this could work. Or even do a dialectic and share a dialectic of those 4 categories applied to something like this. I'd love to see it. And maybe we can grow something even more awesome together, which could be fun. Oh, eventually leading to, as we just said, us writing that 3rd book. Because I'm not sure who else might be qualified to write it. It might be us. It is definitely a puzzle, and it is wild that Pierre Grimes had reached such a level of understanding of self and reality that he is able to see through time in that way and give us little puzzles like this. Anybody who's watched Hunter x Hunter, you might call this post-mortem Nen. Hunter x Hunter is a cool anime where their spiritual power isn't the Logos or the self or Usia, but it's this force called Nen, like Chi, maybe we would say, or Ki. Anyway, if somehow they set their Nen to do something after they die, that Nen becomes infinitely more powerful, called post-mortem Nen. And here is Pierre Grimes saying, oh, there's a book being written about dream analysis. That'll be available soon. Having written this book 20 years ago or something. Was it 20 years ago? 40 years ago? So he's doing a bit of post-mortem Nen maybe, and maybe we're the ones that were going to write this book. Maybe it's something we can carry with us. Let's finish this chapter here, this paragraph here. While it is clear that the imposition of belief, believing someone else, establishes power and authority, there you go, over a subject, it's not obvious that we always have the opportunity to get out of it. In every moment, there is the chance to get out of our submission, to regain our integrity. Ooh, what's that little? Oh, it's a little happy dancing fellow? Thanks, sus. There's a chance to get out of our submission, to regain our integrity. Boba tea. It's a dancing boba tea. I don't know why that's funny to me. I guess it was just so random and unexpected. Why boba tea? What a strange thing to have as a little dancing fellow. In every moment there is a... Who's this guy? I'm going to have to move it to my other screen. Who is that? Who's that little guy dancing with a... Has he got a shovel? What? Oh no, it's someone's nose. What is this person doing with his nose? These emotes are very weird in my chat. All right. Okay, so imposition of belief, we've been talking a lot about that. Establishes power over. Power over. Dialectic is power with. It's an invitation. Authority and belief is power over. Big difference. It is not at all obvious that we have the opportunity to get out of it. In every moment, there is a chance to get out of our submission, to regain our integrity, and in this struggle, to become more authentically ourselves. The network of the Pathologos is what we struggle against. It is the formidable structure. Its formidable structure is nothing other than a set of interpretations accepted as real. The power is then assured and kept in place by our reluctance to examine each and every claim that lies behind the Pathologos. Don't be reluctant. Don't give up. You can do it. I believe you can do it. No, I know you can do it. And the reason why I know you can do it, why you can examine each and every claim that lies behind the Pathologos and its structure, I know you can do it because my chicken knows you can do it. Look at this chicken. Get your hair out of your eyes. There we go. See? Lovely chicken. Why is your hair in your face? Got such nice eyes, chicken. See? The chicken knows you can do it. So if you don't trust yourself, trust in the chicken that trusts in yourself. Yeah. It's a powerful sentence. And by the way, if you were here with the problems you have without the means to solve them, what kind of universe would that be? In fact, there's a dialectic for you. I won't solve it for you, but I'll get you started. This is a good one. You might be wondering whether or not you can play this game. Whether or not you'll be able to question all of the underlying things behind your Pathologos. Therefore, what do we do when we have a question? Carry it, share it, polish it up nicely. But also, play dialectic. So, what's the question? Can I solve my problems I face here? Is it just I face? So, two possibilities. Well, first of all, we need to find a key term. What's the subject of our dialectic? What word? Do I have the... Let's polish up our question. So notice, got a question? That was good. We celebrate that. We're happy with a question. And the stuffing's dance. Okay, first thing, celebrate a question. Number 2, polish up the question. Can we polish this up? Because we need a subject. So let's delete this. Does what exist that means I have what I need to, we have a reluctance to do what? Examine the claims. Examine and remove my pathologos and problems. What are we going to put in here? Does what exist? What would we need to be able to solve our problems? Logos? But you want it yourself, so a self logos. Do I have a self logos? Does that exist? And everything that we tie to the self logos. Do I have the reasoning, reflecting, understanding, solving ability that will allow me to examine and remove my pathologos and problems? So we'll say the subject, whether it exists or not, is the self logos. So there's the start. We're getting close to the game. So, the dialectic has 2 halves. If the self logos exists, from here, that's part A. And B, if the subject or the self does not exist. The first category is self to self, or definition. So if you are wondering whether you have the ability to answer, to examine the thoughts and the blocks and the problems that come up, if you are wondering whether you have what you need to solve your problems, this is how you answer that question. First, definition. How do you, not from your opinions or beliefs, but from the texts that we've been reading, how do you define the self-logos? Because that's what we need so far. So what key terms talk about the self-logos itself? Well, you got the word self in there, you got the word logos in there, you could explore that. The dialectic is always, we've been talking about the self-logos and the structure of the dialectic. Self-reflection, ousia. Having friends to talk to help, you have that. So all of these things that stand out for you, it's your seeing, could go under definition. Now, self to another. How does it function or demonstration? That thing you've just defined using all those terms, how would it function if it did exist? If you were the sort of person who had this and it existed, how would it function? Now, we need one more term. Remember, dialectic has two basic premises, has the the subject and other. Self or the subject and other. So, in order to see how it functions, you need to rub it up against something. You have to function with something. You have to have a relationship. So we have a relationship with our problems. So how would the self logos demonstrate itself in relation to problems? So we say that other here is problems. Pathologos, problems. So if it existed, how would the self-logos function in relation to your problems? Now, on another document or another page or another note, what if it didn't exist? What if the self-logos didn't actually exist? What would it be? What would this book be about? What would Socrates be talking about? When Socrates talked about being a philosophical midwife, to use the dialectic to help free people from their ignorance. What was Socrates doing? If Dream's talking about that, what are they doing? In other words, in a universe where it's not real, but we still have the word, it doesn't actually exist, how would you define it? Would you say it's a con? Would you say it's an illusion? Would you say Socrates and Pierre and our Dream Master are all nuts? A scam? This is your thing. What would it be if it's not real, if it's not exist? Definition on this side. And just as we have a demonstration, how does it function if it does it? How does this, whatever you end up calling it, this lie, how would it function to solve your problems? Well, it probably wouldn't, would it? Give you false hope? Beat you down? What would you say? Demonstration of if it didn't exist. Demonstration. Then, if it did exist, define it, of course, the self-logos. How does it function to solve your problems? And then having solved your problems, how would you then relate to other people or other things? Having been able to solve your problems, you come into this situation we're reading about where someone is using their authority to enslave or oppress you, get you to submit. In this situation, knowing you can demonstrate and solve your problems, what would you do? Would you reclaim your integrity? Would you reclaim your autonomy? Would you reclaim your self-goals? That's called division. So notice, self to self, this self comes over and begins the next one. This other comes over. So having demonstrated itself to you, this you then comes over and it functions towards others. Division. How do you relate to your problems? How do you relate to your boss? How do you relate to your job? How do you relate to your partner? How do you relate to your friends? Division. In this hypothetical universe, notice it's hypothetical. It's an if. That's why it goes into our if sack. We don't know it for certain. It's the best use of our if, but it's a springboard into, it's a first step towards higher cognitive functions. Then from those divisions, how do you relate to these different situations, relationships, things? Is there something as you ousia, reflect on everything you've written out and go, hang on a second, there's something key, or there's something that repeats, or there's something highest. Pull out an idea or a term or something from this division that really jumps out at you. That's this synthesis. That gives you this next O, synthesis. And that O has to then be taken back to the beginning. You take that idea and you add it to your first definition. Now you have a new enhanced definition. You've leveled up. And then you can go out, try and reach your most meaningful goals and test this understanding, this new definition in your experience. And then after you test it, what do? Meet your friends here, share your experiences, and do a new dialectic because you've got new things to put into a new definition to start this process again. It cycles up. That's the game. Sherlock Holmes solves a crime and then solves another one and then another one. And hopefully, now we're not solving crimes, we are improving our souls. But it's the same model. After you level up, you don't just stay as level 2. You go to level 3. You upgrade, you get all the way to level 60 or 100 or whatever the level cap is. Same thing for the dialectic. So that's called synthesis. To synthesize or unify a key, S-Y-N, synthesis, and analysis. Analysis is bringing it back. So that's why it's the self. So other, back to the self. Where's the self? Back here. Notice, just 2 ideas. 4 possible permutations. For if it is, and if the subject isn't. So you'd have an O there and you'd have an OS here. So if you're wondering about if you have what you need to solve your problems, become happier, become free, get that lemon out of your garage and seek that true Lamborghini of the soul, then value that question. Don't ignore that question if it comes up. Treat it like a friend or like an accuser in court, either or. And answer it using the very thing we are here to learn. The very reason we have problems is so that we can practice this and master this. So do it. You will have 2 hypotheses, the kind of universe and the kind of conclusions. So you can also call this division. Another word for synthesis and analysis is conclusion. What are the conclusions that follow this universe if the self-logos doesn't exist? What conclusions follow this universe? Carry both as you go in your if sack, in your inventory, your hypothesis sack. And that is about as much work as I can do on this particular dialectic without getting in the way of you having the fun doing it yourself. That's the line I'm trying to walk. Give as much guidance and aid without doing the work for you, of course. I'm not baby braining you. I'm not saying believe me or be passive to me. That's Pathologos shit. I'm telling you you're good enough. I'm telling you that my chicken thinks you're good enough and you should do it yourself. And you can do it yourself. And the reason why I'm certain a chicken is right is because the flamingo trusts the chicken too, and I trust the flamingo. And sometimes they kiss. Survival Evolved. Don't remember the cap though. Oh, is Ark Survival a game that you're playing? Are you using World of Warcraft sounds? This is the leveling up and the accepting of a quest sound from Warcraft. Often games have a level cap, pointing to the idea that don't give up. Even when you're making progress, even when you start to have insights, it's a way of being. It's a relationship. The dialectical way of being is something that you are at all times. You practice until it becomes automatic. Why? What we read earlier today, because the understanding that you're developing in this game, you see through and you act through. So your seeing is going to become more clearer. Your actions are going to become more decisive if you realize that this is a way of being. That's open to everyone, necessary to solve problems, and what we're here for in the first place. What is Ark? I'm not familiar with Ark. Is that a new one? I haven't played games in so long. As soon as this community gets large enough, I'm definitely going to be playing, maybe not WoW because it's too good and addictive, but something where we can play games and talk about philosophy at the same time. That's one of my medium-term goals, because I miss gaming. And so long as we are wondering about the self and using the dialectic as much as we can, I think we can still do our job while playing games and have fun. But this is even better. This is the game of all games. And remember, trust in the chicken that trusts in you. That's courage, by the way, until you understand it and see it for yourself. In which case, you can come back, have coffee with us, and share the dialectic so we can see that we are able to do it ourselves. Keep the game rolling. The power is then assured. Okay, so the network of Pathologos is what we struggle against. It's a formidable structure. It's nothing other than a set of interpretations we accept as real, but it ain't. The power is then assured and kept in place by our reluctance to examine each and every claim. But if it's our way of being, maybe we will be doing it. We have reluctance, that's okay. We have courage. Courage begins in the face of reluctance, in the face of pleasure, pain, desire, and fear. Yeah. Do it anyway. Like that guy off TikTok. I do it anyway. I do it sad. I do it mad. I do it anyway. Don't know if you've seen that guy. He comes up every now and again on my feed. Do it anyway, that's courage. Until, of course, it's a way of seeing, in which case you've integrated it. But our reluctance to examine each and every claim that lies behind the Pathologos is what keeps the power of it alive. It is nothing other than the effect of not reviewing what we have ourselves concluded. Because in not reviewing these conclusions, we tacitly accept the interpretations based on the learnings that are enshrined in the Pathologos. So by playing that game we just outlined of the dialectic, we are developing legitimate reflection and understanding, legitimate conclusions we take with us and test. If we don't, we are accepting the bullshit conclusions that were all interpretations based on the bullshit Pathologos origin scene, enshrined in the family clan way of being. As long as we don't examine the legitimacy of those claims, we don't answer them properly like a friend or an accuser, they have power over us. These beliefs were crafted in our youth, and we struggle against them our entire lives. This principle of forcing experience to conform to belief is the act of interpretation. That's what baby brain people do. Right? They don't listen. You said you don't like you said you like pancakes. Do you hate waffles? I hate you. You're woke because you hate waffles. I didn't say I hate waffles. I said I like pancakes. You are forcing your experience to conform with the belief you got from childhood that anyone who is rational is woke or not Republican or any of that, or non-Christian, or not a faith believer in Muslim, or not a good Jew, or not a good Mormon, or you name it. That's called interpretation, forcing experience to conform to belief. And the Pathologos cannot be believed without interpretation. If you saw things as they are, you wouldn't believe the bullshit that friend, not literal, is feeding you to undermine yourself. Which is why, earlier when I said, having an experience of Usia isn't enough to remove your problems, but then I hesitated because it can diminish for a while your problems. Because you just had an experience of the truth. So it's harder to believe what's false. But again, Pathologos has to be addressed with this, so it will come back even after a peak experience. Once the so Pathologos cannot be believed without interpretation, and once the interpretation is accepted, the dramatic episode with all its particular stages becomes the model for relating in all analogous situations. So we interpret, we try and force reality to conform with our bullshit beliefs that are unsuspected and hidden, and then we play out the drama. The drama of the family origin scene and the way that you do things in your family. Because that drama with all its stages is the model for relating. How did you learn to express yourself? By yelling? By attacking? By throwing a fit? By getting mad? By being passive? By being a slave? By being a doormat? These are the stages that you have learnt is okay to express the self. You can express yourself as a Muslim, but nothing else. If you're a female within our tradition, you can speak, but only one word. Bullshit. Oppressive, sexist, Pathologos bullshit. But we carry it with us, project it onto reality, try and force reality to fit into it, and then the stages within that drama becomes a model for relating in all analogous situations, all situations like that. Naturally, the adherence to a rational method means that there must be no interpretations or other forms of intrusion by the midwife. Interpretation is when someone adds or subtracts from what is being considered. This adding and subtracting distorts the meaning of whatever is being reflected upon, and it changes it into belief of the interpreter. Interpretation, conscious or unconscious, is the forced delivery of the interpreter's own offspring. You're not helping the other person give birth in midwifery. You are forcing your own offspring if you are inflicting or projecting your own interpretations. The result of a solitary fantasy of the interpreter. In contrast, the midwife and the pregnant party together proceed to develop what is ready to be brought to birth. There's something ready that you're ready to see. If you are at the level where you are engaged in this kind of reflection, you must have seen enough to be ready to give birth to your problem. Free yourself from it. The birth must be the pregnant party's own and not contaminated by the beliefs of the midwife. Challenging interpretations is testing the legitimacy. Big deal. So we've been talking a lot about duads today. The crime scene and Baker Street. Our origin scene and reflection. Here, having experience and a trust that we can reflect on it and solve it. We have to reflect on it. Here we have another duad that goes in our skill tree. Interpretations versus what? Seeing as it is, seeing the logos versus personal interpretations and beliefs. They're not partners like logos and dialectic or crime scene and Baker Street, origin scene and midwifery. They're more like this. What if the self-logos exists? You could see things as they are. What if the self-logos doesn't exist? You are projecting interpretation. So actually, these two big terms of today's podcast, the difference between interpretation, projection, seeing through beliefs, trying to make reality fit to your beliefs, baby brain, and true seeing might be fitting perfectly in this dialectic we did together, or we are inviting you to play with. Because that's seeing things as they are. What are you seeing through? Your understanding. What are you seeing? The self-logos. What's the true understanding? The self-logos. So maybe self-logos is here. That's the seeing things as they are. And functioning as a good midwife without contaminating the birth and giving birth to your own offspring. No, you don't contaminate the pregnant party. You don't force your own interpretations. You follow their logos. They are self-logos. So therefore, being a good midwife would be in here. Seeing things as they are is here. Reading without interpretation would be here. The way we're learning to read as we go. Whereas interpretation, here. Making things fit your own beliefs, here. I'm not sure which category, that's up to you, what category they go in, but they would fit here. Being subservient to authorities, to being a slave to the ignorance of some other garbage person. They're not garbage person. They are if they're functioning through their pathologos. Being a slave to their ignorance. Interpretation would be in this category. Isn't that a coincidence? Is it a coincidence? Or is it a mark of care, intelligence, and beauty, symmetry, that is being communicated from self through mind and logos to you and me right now because we are doing our best to do what's best? Could that be why it all came together in this dialectic? Right at the end, when wondering about what's the opposite, what's the pair? If this is interpretation, what's this? They're not cooperative pairs like logos and dialectic. They're more like opposites. But what's this one? Well, our hypothesis that's come to light because we are reading in this way, and we are not just having the experience, we are reflecting on what we're reading, and we are reflecting with the dialectic because we're playing the game. We're not passive. We are demonstrating what we've been defining about the dialectic, defining it in our reason, demonstrating it, division at all times, and reflecting on it right now. What happens if we do the dialectic at all times as our way of being? Because we are doing that, we came to this fantastic insight that our question, what's the opposite or the partner to interpretation, might be this. Because interpretation fits here, and therefore the answer to our question might be this. Now we have a hypothesis or an insight. We are seeing more clearly now. We are thinking more as it is. We are doing less interpretation. And the next time that voice of interpretation from our past, oh, this scene is analogous to when you tried to ask for milk when you were 4 and you got kicked in the head. Don't ask for milk now. Don't ask for a beer. They'll kick you in the head just like da-da-da-da. That's your interpretation. They're not going to kick you in the head like someone did when you were 4. It's not actually analogous. You are interpreting and you're forcing it. That's what we want to get away from. That's causing our distortion. It fits here. Therefore, our question about its opposite might be here. And this whole thing might be a demonstration of the profound intelligence and care and beauty, symmetry, it all came back around, that we have been looking for and talking about all day today, that we can share in so long as we're playing this game. Because the Logos is communicating, the self-Logos must come from that which has the greatest head and the greatest heart. Care and intelligence, or Logos and providence. And we all experienced it firsthand, so we have a good counter-argument whenever we have those thoughts that say, oh no, there is no such thing as care or Logos or providence, or whenever those sorts of things come up, we can recognize it as false, and we have the courage to answer it now, and we can recognize it as obviously wrong because we've done this. We've seen firsthand how providential intelligence and caring the Logos is, simply by the way that it all came back around to this dialectic at the end. But if you've been paying close attention, a lot of our podcasts end up in this kind of a way. What does that mean? In seeing that, are we gaining what was mentioned here, where it said, see, this is why I highlight everything. We read earlier saying that in midwifery, it's not about, oh yes, we trust in the Logos and the principles of our, here we go. The natural result of this process is of what? Of testing and verifying in our own direct experience the head and heart, it's another duad, the intelligence and care of reality, allows the midwife to trust in reason and be guided by the principles of the art. Trust in the Logos and be guided by it. Hopefully, this talk today and how it all came back around in a way that is intelligent and caring, helping us, is another example of that. Allowing you with greater trust in the Logos and to be guided by, okay, whoops. We have a little bit of work to do. The natural result of this process is that the midwife is trusting in reason and to be guided by the principles of the art. Let's play. What's the real word for reason? What's the real word for the principles of the art? What's the art that we're doing? So we have to be trusting and guiding in what? Guided by what? Trust in reason or the Logos. Guided by the principles of the art. What's the principles of the art? The dialectic. So either in seeing what happens if you participate in midwifery and apply it, or reflecting on what happens in these talks about learning the art, like this which just happened, hopefully it demonstrates about the Logos and the dialect, it demonstrates the inherent intelligence and profound care, head and heart, that is the nature of the fabric of reality that we are existing in, and is also the highest reflection of the self. Hello, welcome to the chat, Guacamole. And maybe that realization of that thing we've been seeking this whole time, intelligence and care, head and heart, seeing it manifest in the way that did for us because we are matching it in how we are playing, will end up with you trusting in the logos or reason, and to be guided by the dialectic as a way of seeing, as a way of thinking, as a way of understanding, as a way of relating to yourself, as a way of relating to that voice, as a way of relating to your puzzles and questions, like we did here. And maybe as a new way of being we can all practice together that can lead us to our highest goals and allow us to finally solve our problems.
It's a win-win.
Thank you so much for joining me. Thank you for all the new chatters today. If you're new, basically we are reading two kinds of books. How to learn the dialectic applied to removing what's false in our soul to solve our problems, and tomorrow, every second day, we read Socrates to learn what's the truth. How do we understand the dialectic, how we think, how we reason, how we talk, so that we can properly understand the true nature of self and reality, and confirm that in our own experience. And then what do we do after an experience? Like always, we reflect on it. We talk about it. Oh, and thank you for the follow. I know it's 3.5 hours we've been streaming. Usually they're about 2 hour streams, and you just joined, but I mean, normally it's much shorter, so you got lucky. You can find a link to our YouTube channel, where everything that we do here is posted, so you can go through it at your own pace and have fun, comment. You can, hopefully I'll be on tomorrow. There's a cyclone happening where I am, so I might be without power or internet, and if I am without power or internet, it might last like a week or so. If I can, definitely I will be here tomorrow, but yeah, one day it's philosophical midwifery, giving birth to the false beliefs that cause our problems, and every other day it's Socrates. How to learn Socrates' art of dialectic to use your freedom from your problems now that you've removed the false idea of self, the false idea of good out of your soul. Well, what's the true self? What's the true good? How do we get there? How do we understand it? How do we make it our way of being? How do we confirm it in indirect experience? And maybe even, how do we go beyond that? That's the game. They call it the Noblest Game. It's also the archetype of the hero's journey, because all human beings are here for that reason. We are all heroes on this hero's quest. And fortunately for us, we happen to all be meeting each other at a period of history where we finally have the handbook, or the Dungeons and Dragons manual of how to play the real game. And that's what this channel is about. We're reading it together. We're learning a new way of reading. We're learning a new way of thinking. And we're testing it in our experience. We're reflecting it so we can hone it in a way where we can fulfill our highest function and experience our highest happiness. So yeah, link to the YouTube below. Link to our Discord if you want to join the Discord. I give notifications when we go live. So it's around the same time, but I let everyone know when we're going online. And yeah, feel free to share your work, your comments, your questions, especially questions. Get used to looking for questions and polishing them up. Ask a question, realize, oh, I actually wanted this part of the question in it, like we did today. We had a question and we need to polish it up. So carry questions, polish up questions, share them with your friends, and do your best to use the dialectic to come up with answers and carry them with you. Because what it means to be a philosopher involves the true hero's journey.
I'm looking for someone to share in an adventure.
You're a wizard, Harry.
The Sherlock Holmes solving of puzzles. And as an adventurer, we have an inventory where we carry our questions. We carry the hypotheses we make in our dialectics. We try and maintain an open, curious, puzzled, wondering, stung state of mind that we're learning about in the Meno, which we'll read tomorrow. How do you be open and curious? How can you be okay with not knowing? I thought virtue was acting certain and being alpha. Nope. Opposite. Curiosity, wonder. Look for pairs. We've seen a lot of pairs today. Look for sets of 3s, look for sets of 4s, look for sets of 5s. And they're your skill trees, looking for groups of terms that fit together. Reading the logos together, that's Apollo. Reflecting is Aphrodite. We need to be doing both together. But ultimately, the most important force and characteristic that can bring you into this game, your game, the noblest game, the quest of philosophy, seeking excellence and truth. We read that today. Let's read it again. Each midwife talk is an opportunity to add another piece to the puzzle. Another piece is tested in the immediacy of our everyday life. It is tested because we carry our understanding with us. Understanding is not something we can choose to turn on or off. It is our way of seeing. We see through what we understand. So do it all times, practice it. We do not have to learn to act with understanding. We act through what we understand. In this change, we become more attentive to what unfolds before us. Everything is a puzzle. Everything is a message, a logos message, an intelligent message to care. Everything is providential if we are looking in this way. We are more attentive to what unfolds before us, and we can act more decisively. While it takes courage to begin to return to these unresolved conflicts, it also takes cool-headedness, 2 of the 4 virtues, courage and cool-headedness, to allow ourselves to be with our understanding and not fly off the handle, not be dragged into the Pathologos drama. Usually when I ask for milk, I have to get angry, otherwise I won't get milk. Where's my milk? I asked for milk 10 minutes ago. No, don't fall into those patterns of expressing yourself that reflect your Pathologos home drama. Instead, keep a cool head and be with your understanding. Other human virtues are also tested as one proceeds, but by far the most important is the desire to discover the truth about oneself and one's reality. The natural result of this process is that the philosophical midwife learns to trust in the logos and be guided by the principles of the dialectic. So, the most important one is to have the desire to discover the truth about oneself and one's reality. So, let's add it. The most important part of being on this quest is to The desire, let's give it a different color. The desire to discover the truth. Notice, it's not a desire to prove all your dumb beliefs you already carry to be right, like sophists do, like ignorant people driven by their pathologos ignorance do. No. It's not proving all your dumb opinions are awesome. It's a desire to discover the truth about oneself, let's put this in yellow. These are big ones. Oneself and reality. If you don't have this, find a way to become puzzled. Seek higher and higher goals until this is your goal. Then you're in the game. I was actually typing this out as you were saying it. Are you in a hurry? Can I ask you a very deep philosophical question? Sure. Yeah, share your questions. Definitely. To carry a question with you is to be on a quest. And philosophy ain't a solo quest.
I'm looking for someone to share in an adventure.
So definitely. You can ask it on Discord too. Do both. Yeah. And see what happens if you carry the question for a while. See if you can polish it up, remove any unnecessary words, or find better words that really get to the heart of your question. See how long you can stay focused on that question. Sustained, focused attention on a question you are genuinely curious about, that's actually about yourself and reality. Formally, that's the conditions of meditation. So how long can you keep focused on your question before a distraction comes up? Oh, and by the way, any distractions that come up that take you off your quest, write it down. Those are the clues we use to solve our problem in midwifery. So yeah, you can share it in the chat. You can share it in Discord. I have to say goodbye for now, but I'll see you tomorrow. Thank you for joining me. I hope you've got some things to wonder about, and I hope you are curious about the state of being puzzled. And as we're reading, I hope this has made clear some more things about the difference between seeing the self-logos and interpretation, and hopefully that can shed some light on why we are learning to read in a new way. All of the past models of reading have been based on interpretation. If we're doing the opposite, because interpretation does nothing other than solidify your false, harmful beliefs that cause you to be trapped, we don't want to do that anymore, then how do we read? And by the way, do not neglect healthy alliteracy. What's that? What's alliteracy? While constructing your question. I'm not as smart as you. Let me Google this. Oh, brisk and cheerful readiness. Oh yeah, it's fun. There's no blame or guilt or shame, no punishment at all. That's all violent crap. We're all the same self, experiencing our same mind in a quest to know ourselves as mind through mastering this art of dialectic and also integrating it so we can function in a beneficial way to ourselves and our friends. So There's no need to be, if you're in this game, then you're golden. There's no need to be worried. You can be fun, cheerful. You can have alacrity. You can have brisk and cheerful readiness. It's an all the time thing as well. Sometimes I say about music, if you're a musician, then it's not a title you earn, it's something you do. You're playing music if you're a musician, so play music. Same thing with philosophy. You're a dialectician. You're following the logos to know self and experience mind as ousia. So do it. Follow the logos. Ask questions. Practice the dialectic. Every experience, make sure it's accompanied by reflection on that experience. And if you have to talk to yourself out loud, yeah, that's the world we're in at the moment. So do something meaningful and then spend the next few hours reflecting on it. What did you see? What puzzles came up? What puzzles about your blocks and what puzzles about higher states of being? The logos and the pathologos. So yeah, good idea to share their TV. On that note, thank you once again for joining me. Thank you for your questions. You'll find links to all those things below, and I hope to see you next time. You're a philosopher, dialectic. You're a musician, play music. You're a philosopher, play dialectic. Have fun. They're waving goodbye. Bye.